"That service injury is an excuse," my father said. "Your brother doesn't get to stop every time something hurts." The warehouse went quiet except for the loading dock heater clicking behind me. It had been making that noise for 6 winters, a dry little tick like it was trying to start an argument. Matt stood beside the late shipment of stone countertops with his phone in one hand and a paper cup in the other. He didn't look at me. That was how I knew he remembered every second. I took the store keys off my belt and set them on the counter. "My service injury didn't stop me," I said. "Matt did." Dad's irritation slipped, just for a second. What's that supposed to mean? Ask him why it took 40 minutes to call an ambulance. Elise's cup hit the concrete. The plastic lid popped off and coffee spread around her shoes. Dad looked from me to Matt. 40 minutes after what? Matt finally raised his head. His face had gone gray beneath the warehouse lights. I kept my eyes on him. After he pinned me against the loading platform with that forklift, nobody moved. Then Matt gave a short, breathless laugh. "Claire, come on." It was the same laugh he used when a customer caught him promising something we couldn't deliver. Warm, embarrassed, almost charming. It meant the truth had become inconvenient and we were all expected to help him carry it out of the room. Dad frowned at me. "You said the shelving came down." I lied. The words sounded smaller than I expected. 3 years of protecting him, and it came out like I was admitting I'd taken the last dinner roll. Ray Mercer, my father to me, Mr. Mercer to everyone who wanted a discount, planted both hands on the service counter. At 67, he still had the shoulders of the man who had opened Mercer Home Supply with one rented truck and a cash register that shocked him every time the weather turned damp. His hair had gone white, but his anger hadn't aged a day. You don't make an accusation like that because you're mad about unloading a truck. I'm not mad about the truck. You just put your keys down. Those are separate decisions. Matt shook his head as if I were proving his point. "This is the medication talking. I took ibuprofen at 6 this morning. Well, you've been under a lot of stress." I almost admired it. He had moved from denial to diagnosis in under 20 seconds. Elise bent to retrieve her cup, missed it, and straightened without trying again. She wore a cream sweater that made her look composed from the neck down. Her face was another story. "Matt," she said, "why did she say 40 minutes? He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know. Because she's upset." "No," I said, "because I watched the clock over the loading door while I was on the floor." Dad's eyes flicked toward that clock. It had a red second hand and a Mercer Home Supply logo faded to the color of old ketchup. He had given those clocks away during the store's 25th anniversary. We were preparing for the 50th now, which was why the warehouse held towers of sale signs, rented coffee urns, and 4 pallets of countertop samples nobody had arranged enough people to unload. I had arranged 3 people. Matt had sent 2 of them across town that morning because he'd forgotten promising a contractor same-day delivery. Now, apparently, my pelvis was being unreasonable. Dad lowered his voice. "Maybe we should take this into the office." That was not concern. That was crowd control. Around us, 6 employees had become intensely interested in things that did not require movement. Luis was holding a box cutter halfway through a strip of tape. Denise stood behind the returns desk with one hand frozen above her keyboard. Cal, our longest-serving warehouseman, stared at the forklift. It was not the same forklift. Dad had replaced the old one 2 years ago because the steering kept pulling left. Matt had called that a safety decision. "I've spent 3 years taking it into the office," I said. "Nothing changes in the office." "You never said anything in the office," Dad snapped. That's what Matt was counting on. Matt set his coffee down. He did it carefully, buying himself a few seconds. She fell. I found her. She was scared and hurt, and now she's mixing things up. I could feel the first tremor starting high in my right thigh. It wasn't visible yet. I shifted my weight to the left and rested 2 fingers on the counter. Small correction. No drama. That was how I'd made it through 12 years in Army logistics. Adjust before anyone noticed the problem. Find the missing pallet. Rewrite the movement schedule. calm the lieutenant who had confused confidence with volume, get everyone fed, fueled, and pointed in the right direction. The Army had not taught me to suffer in silence. My family had. The Army had merely made me efficient at it. "Do you remember what you said to me?" I asked Matt. His eyes moved to Dad. "I'm not doing this. You said, 'Don't close your eyes, Claire. I need you to tell me where the whiskey went.'" Elise made a soft sound. Matt turned on her. "I had a bottle in the office. That doesn't mean I was drinking." "You told me you stopped," she said. "I did stop." "When?" "Jesus, Elise, not now." Her mouth tightened. Matt heard accusation in questions and betrayal in timing. He could disappoint you for years, but if you objected on a Tuesday, Tuesday became the real problem. Dad came around the counter. "Claire, sit down. I'm fine. Your leg's shaking." There it was. My body had entered the discussion as a hostile witness. I said I'm fine. "And that right there is what I'm talking about," Dad said. "You push until you can't, then everybody else has to guess what's going on." I stared at him. "You told me my injury was an excuse 30 seconds ago. I said you use it when it suits you." Matt looked down, hiding the smallest hint of relief. Dad was doing what he always did when Matt cornered himself, finding a second defendant. The unfairness should have felt new. Instead, it fit so neatly into all the old spaces that I knew exactly where it would settle. When we were in our 20s, Matt missed Dad's retirement dinner from the volunteer fire department because he had driven to Indiana to buy a motorcycle. Dad told everyone Matt was spontaneous. I arrived 20 minutes late after a 12-hour drive from Fort Campbell, and Dad asked why the Army couldn't teach me to plan ahead. Matt eventually sold the motorcycle to pay a gambling debt. Dad bought it from him and kept it in the garage for 9 years. I should have known we had been rehearsing this scene our whole lives. Cal quietly lowered the box he was carrying. "Mr. Mercer, you want us to clear out?" Dad's head snapped toward him. "I want everybody to get back to work." Nobody did. I had spent the last month preparing for the anniversary sale. I built the vendor schedule, corrected Matt's advertising order, negotiated the tent rental, and convinced Dad that customers did not want free yardsticks in the year of our Lord 20-whatever. "They're useful," Dad had argued. "For measuring disappointment, maybe." He laughed then. He used to laugh at me before everything between us became a test of endurance. The stone shipment was due the following Monday. Matt had moved it up without telling me because a sales representative offered an extra discount. The truck arrived at 8 that morning, and by 10:30 the driver was charging us wait time, while Dad and Matt argued about who was supposed to unload it. Somewhere in those 2.5 hours, the problem became my refusal to lift. "I can operate the forklift," I had told them. "I'm not carrying the slabs." Matt said the loading aisle was too crowded for the forklift. I said that was because he had filled it with clearance vanities without leaving a turning radius. He said I always had a reason. Then Dad gave him the sentence he had apparently been waiting for. "That service injury is an excuse." Now Dad looked at the keys on the counter as though they had personally insulted him. "Pick those up," he said. "No, you don't quit in the middle of a shipment. I quit 3 years after one." Matt blew out a hard breath. "So that's it? You tell some insane story, drop your keys, and leave us to clean up?" I looked at him. "You know a lot about leaving someone on the floor to clean up your mess." His face changed. The charm disappeared. For a moment, I saw the man from that winter night. Not panicked, not confused, but furious that my broken body had created a problem he couldn't talk his way around. "You agreed," he said. The warehouse seemed to contract. Dad stared at him. "Agreed to what?" Matt realized the mistake instantly. "I mean, she agreed it was an accident." "That's not what you said. She's twisting everything." "No," Elise said quietly. "You said she agreed." He turned on her again. "Whose side are you on?" Elise looked at the coffee around her shoes. "I didn't know there were sides." That landed harder than if she had yelled. Dad pointed toward his office. "Matt. Inside. Now." Matt didn't move. Neither did I. 3 years earlier, he had obeyed me when I told him to turn off the forklift. He had shut it down after it hit me, jumped off, and stood over me saying my name like repetition could reverse machinery. I remembered the pressure vanishing when he backed away. I remembered trying to move my right foot and feeling nothing. I remembered the whiskey bottle on its side beneath the desk visible through the open warehouse door. Then Matt had started cleaning. Not helping me. Cleaning. He wiped the steering wheel. He carried the bottle into the restroom. He came back and asked where my phone was. I thought he was going to call for help, but he used it to check the time. When I asked for an ambulance, he said, I'm calling. Just let me think." 40 minutes of thinking. I had hidden that memory so thoroughly that sometimes I could smell industrial cleaner without knowing why my hands had gone cold. Dad's voice pulled me back. "Claire, you're coming too. No, we are not doing this in front of employees. I'm not doing it anywhere." His face hardened. "You owe me an explanation." That almost made me laugh. "I gave you one. You gave me a grenade and walked away. That's what grenades do when you hold them for 3 years." Denise covered a cough that might have been a laugh. Even Dad glanced at her. I slid my name badge from my shirt. The pin caught in the fabric, and for one ridiculous second I was trapped by Mercer Home Supply polyester. I tugged harder. The badge came free and flew across the counter. Cal caught it without looking. "Nice reflexes," I told him. "Thank you," he said solemnly. Matt muttered, "Unbelievable." But something inside me had already gone still. I opened the bottom drawer behind the custom order desk and took out my folding cane. Dad had seen it before, but never at work. I kept it beneath warranty forms and spare rolls of receipt paper because customers became tender when they saw it, and my family became irritated. The cane clicked open. Dad looked wounded by the sound. "You've had that here?" "Since the surgery. You never told me." I got tired of telling people things they preferred not to know. I stepped around the counter. The first few strides hurt. They usually did after I had stood too long, but the cane took the uncertainty out of them. Elise moved aside. Her face was pale, her eyes fixed on Matt. As I reached the warehouse door, Dad called after me. "If you leave now, don't expect everything to be waiting when you decide to come back." I turned. Behind him, Matt stood beside the countertops he had promised other people would carry. The employees watched from among the anniversary banners. One of the banners had unrolled halfway across the concrete. 50 years of family service, it said. The word family was upside down. "I'm not coming back," I said. For the first time in my life, I left my father and brother alone with the work they said they had been doing all along. The automatic door hesitated before opening, which felt petty. I leaned on the cane and waited while the sensor reconsidered my eligibility to leave. Behind me, Dad said my name again. Not angry this time. That made it worse. The door opened. February air hit my face hard enough to make my eyes water, giving everyone inside the wrong explanation if they were still watching. My truck sat across the lot in the space beside the loading zone. I could have parked closer. I had a disability placard in the glove compartment, but I used it only on the worst days and never at the store. Dad thought the blue sign advertised weakness. Matt thought it advertised good parking. Halfway to the truck, my right leg began to drag. I shortened my stride, planted the cane, and kept moving. In the Army, you learned that panic wasted oxygen. You assessed, you adjusted, you got somewhere safe before you fell apart. The safe place turned out to be the driver's seat of a 6-year-old Ford that smelled like coffee, leather conditioner, and the French fries I dropped between the console and the passenger seat sometime during the previous administration. I locked the doors. Only then did my hands start shaking. I sat with the cane wedged between my knees and watched the store through the windshield. The front windows were painted with gold lettering for the anniversary sale. 50 years, family-owned, local values. Denise had wanted to add, "still here," but I told her it sounded like a threat. Matt appeared behind the glass. He pushed through the door and scanned the lot. I slid lower in my seat, which was absurd. It was my truck. He knew where I parked, but I wasn't ready to have him stand outside my window and turn what had happened into a private misunderstanding. His phone was already in his hand. Mine buzzed in the cup holder. "Matt, what the hell is wrong with you?" A second message arrived before I could decide whether to answer. "Matt, Dad is in shock." That was Matt's favorite kind of emergency, the one in which someone else's reaction became my responsibility. I turned the phone face down. He spotted me and started across the lot. His jaw was set, his coat unzipped. For half a second, I saw the boy who used to run after Dad's truck when Ray left for early deliveries, furious at being left behind. Matt had always experienced separation as an insult. I started the engine. He raised one hand, telling me to wait. I backed out. He slapped the side of the truck as I passed him. Not hard enough to dent it, just hard enough to make sure I knew he had been denied something. At the street, I turned right instead of left, because muscle memory would have taken me to the bank with the store deposit. The locked canvas bag was still beneath my desk. I had prepared it at 9:30, sealed it, and placed the receipt booklet on top for Matt. Even in the middle of blowing up my family, I had finished the deposit. I laughed once, and it came out sounding like a cough. My apartment was 12 minutes away if every light on Route 42 was feeling charitable. None of them were. I stopped at all 6, my phone vibrating through most of the drive. Dad called twice. Matt called 5 times. The store's group chat lit up with messages about the stone shipment. Cal posted that the driver had agreed to wait another 30 minutes. Denise asked who had the revised anniversary coupon file. Louise sent a picture of the loading aisle with the message, "Forklift fits if we move 6 vanities." Then, a minute later, "moving 6 vanities." I wanted to answer him. I knew which 2 had cracked backs and couldn't be pushed from the side. I knew the third one had no hardware inside despite the sticker saying otherwise. My thumb hovered above the keyboard. I put the phone in the glove compartment and shut it. At home, I made it from the parking lot to the elevator without trouble. The elevator was out. A handwritten sign hung over the call button, "Sorry for the inconvenience." I stared at the misspelling for a full 10 seconds. "Well," I told the sign, "at least you're sorry. I lived on the 3rd floor." The sensible choice was to call the property manager and wait for someone to reset the elevator. The property manager, a man named Dale who wore indoor sunglasses and treated every repair request like a personal attack, would ask whether I had tried the stairs. So I tried the stairs. By the 2nd landing, heat had gathered beneath my coat. By the 3rd, my right foot was catching on the edge of each step. I stopped, rested my forehead against the painted cinder block wall, and breathed through the electric ache running from my hip to my ankle. My phone was locked in the truck. No one knew exactly where I was. There was a lesson in there, probably several, but I was too busy resenting Dale to appreciate them. The stairwell door opened above me. Mrs. Donnelly from 3B looked down. She was 72, 5 feet tall, and built like somebody who had once fought a washing machine and won. "You planning to sleep there?" she asked. "Depends what the rent is." She came down without asking and took my tote bag from my shoulder. "I can carry that." "I know." "Then why'd you take it?" "Because you look sweaty and I don't want you dripping on the stairs." That was Mrs. Donnelly's version of mercy. She carried the bag to my apartment while I concentrated on not making the last 8 steps memorable. Inside, I thanked her. "You're welcome." She looked at the cane, then at my face. "Bad day?" "Productive." Those are usually the bad ones. She handed me the tote and went home. I dropped my coat over a chair, took the gel pack from the freezer, and lay on the living room floor with my calves on the couch. My physical therapist called it decompression. I called it being furniture. The ceiling above me had a faint brown ring from a leak Dale claimed was historical. I stared at it while the cold worked through my jeans. I had expected relief after telling the truth. Not joy exactly, but some clean sensation. A door opening, air returning to a sealed room. Instead, I felt as if I had left part of myself standing behind the custom order counter. My work computer was there. My insulated lunch bag was in the break room refrigerator. There was half a container of chicken soup inside it and a sticky note from Denise that said, "Your sad carrots are leaking." The anniversary binder sat in the top right drawer of my desk. Vendor contacts, delivery windows, the radio schedule, tent dimensions, insurance certificate, food order, emergency numbers. I had labeled each section. Matt had called it my war book until he needed something from it, which was often. They would find it. They would still call. I covered my eyes with my forearm. What bothered me wasn't that Dad had defended Matt. Of course he had. A compass couldn't offend you by pointing north. What bothered me was the moment Dad noticed my leg shaking and told me to sit. Concern and contempt lived side by side in him, and sometimes they wore each other's clothes. When my leg finally settled, I went back down for the phone. The elevator had come back to life, the sign removed as if the inconvenience had never existed. There were 23 notifications. I carried the phone upstairs without opening any of them. Then I stood in my kitchen, reheated soup that wasn't mine, and discovered it tasted better without sad carrots. Dad had left a voicemail. "Claire, call me. Your brother says there's more to this, and I'm trying to be fair. You can't say what you said in front of half the staff and walk out. The driver's charging us by the hour. Elise left, and we still don't have the coupon files. Call me." He sounded tired, not shocked. Dad had always made tiredness an accusation. The second voicemail was from Matt. "You need to fix this. I don't know what you think happened, but I saved your life that night. You weren't making sense. I moved things because they could have fallen on you. I got the bottle out of the way because it had broken. That's it. That's what happened. And if you keep telling people I was drunk, you're going to destroy this family over something you can't even remember clearly." I listened twice, not because I doubted myself, because Matt had added a detail. Broken. The bottle had not been broken. I remembered it rolling beneath the metal desk, amber glass catching the overhead light. He had picked it up with the sleeve of his coat pulled over his hand. I went to the sink and poured out the rest of the soup. The third voicemail was from Elise. She didn't speak for several seconds. I could hear a car engine and the faint click of a turn signal. "Claire, I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm sorry for yet, and that sounds terrible. He came home late that night. He said the hospital called him. He made me wash his coat because he spilled something on it. I thought..." She stopped. "Would you call me?" "Not tonight if you don't want to. Just sometime." I sat at the kitchen table. Matt's coat had been dark green, a canvas work coat with a brown corduroy collar. He had worn it in the warehouse. When the paramedics arrived, he had taken it off and folded it over one arm even though the loading door was open and snow was blowing across the concrete. At the hospital, he was wearing a store sweatshirt I had never seen before. I hadn't thought about that in 3 years, or maybe I had thought about it and filed it somewhere my body could reach, but my mind couldn't. A knock came at the door. 3 quick taps, a pause, then 2 more. I knew that knock. I stayed in my chair. "Claire," Matt called. "I know you're home." Of course he did. My truck was parked downstairs, and Matt had never confused a closed door with a boundary. He knocked again. "We need to talk before Dad gets this all twisted." I almost laughed at the precision of that sentence. Dad wasn't supposed to learn the truth. Dad was supposed to receive the approved version before the truth had a chance to put on its shoes. I got up slowly and crossed the room. The peephole showed the top of Matt's head and one shoulder. He stood too close to the door as if proximity gave him leverage. "Go home," I said. His face tilted toward my voice. "Open the door." "No." "Claire, I'm not doing this through a door. You're not doing it at all. I came to apologize." "What are you apologizing for?" Silence. He stepped back enough for me to see his whole face. For Dad saying what he said, Dad already has a phone. "You know what I mean. I really don't." He pressed his palm flat against the door. "You made a promise." There it was. Not, "You're wrong." Not, "It didn't happen." You made a promise. I rested my hand on the deadbolt. I made that promise to a man who said he would stop drinking, get help, and make it right. I did stop. Then why did Elise leave the store? His mouth tightened. "You dragged her into something that has nothing to do with her. You brought whiskey into your marriage. You brought it into Dad's warehouse. You brought it into my hospital room every time you asked me to lie. You don't know what it was like for me." I looked at the door between us. "No," I said. "I know what it was like under the forklift." His hand dropped. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then his voice softened into the one he used when he wanted the past to become a family favor. "If Dad believes you, I lose everything." I unlocked the deadbolt, opened the door 2 inches with the chain still fastened, and looked directly at him. You should have thought about that during the 40 minutes when I was losing the use of my leg. I closed the door. This time, when he knocked, I went back to the kitchen and let him stand outside with a problem I wasn't going to solve. Matt kept knocking until Mrs. Donnelly opened her door. I couldn't hear her first question, but I heard his answer. "This is a private family matter." "Then go have it privately somewhere else." "I'm talking to my sister. You're talking to a door." There was a pause. Mrs. Donnelly added, "And some of us pay extra to live in a building without shouting men in the hallway. Nobody paid extra for that." The building had thin walls and a revolving cast of shouting men. But Matt didn't know, and I loved her for the lie. His footsteps retreated toward the elevator. A minute later, my phone lit up with another message. "Matt, you're making this worse than it needs to be." I blocked his number. Then I sat at the table and stared at the screen, surprised by how violent that small act felt. My thumb had severed a line that had existed since our first cell phones, back when Matt's number lived beneath a plastic button labeled 2, and mine lived beneath 3, because Dad was always 1. For years, if Matt called after midnight, I answered. Usually he needed a ride. Once he needed me to talk him through shutting off the water beneath his kitchen sink. Twice he needed money, though the second time he called it temporary liquidity, which was how I learned desperation could wear a necktie. I had never blocked him. My phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I let it ring once, then twice. On the third, I answered without speaking. "It's me," Elise said. "Did he take your phone?" "He didn't take it. I left it at home." "Why?" "Because he can see where it is." That sentence made the apartment feel colder. "Where are you?" "In the grocery store parking lot. Do you want to come here?" She didn't answer immediately. "I saw him leave," I said. "Mrs. Donnelly deployed." "What? Never mind, he's gone." Elise arrived 15 minutes later carrying a canvas grocery bag filled with things no one bought in the middle of a marital crisis. Toothpaste, paper towels, 2 cans of soup, and a bag of lemons. She held it in front of her like evidence that she had intended to do something ordinary. "I didn't know what to tell him," she said when I opened the door. "So you went grocery shopping. I needed toothpaste. You bought 6 lemons. They were on sale." We looked at each other. Then, against my better judgment and probably hers, we started laughing. It lasted only a few seconds. Elise put the bag on my counter and covered her mouth. Her wedding ring flashed beneath the kitchen light. "I'm sorry," she said. "You're allowed to find citrus funny." "No." "About before." "Which part?" "All of it." I filled the kettle because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. Elise sat at the table, then stood again and began lining up the groceries on my counter. She had always cleaned when nervous. At family dinners, Matt would provoke Dad into an argument, and Elise would disappear with every plate before anyone finished eating. She turned one of the soup cans so the label faced forward. "He said you were trying to ruin him. I'm sure he believes that. Did you tell anyone before today?" "No." "Not a doctor? A lawyer?" "No." She glanced at me. "Why not?" I took 2 mugs from the cabinet. One said, Fort Knox, Gold Standard. The other said, World's OK Sister. Matt had given me that one for Christmas. I put it back and chose a plain blue mug. "Mom had just died," I said. Dad was barely sleeping. The store was behind on everything. Matt said if people knew he'd been drinking, Dad would lose him too. Elaborate. Guilt usually is. The kettle began to hiss. "I thought I was buying time," I said. "He was supposed to get help. I was supposed to recover. Dad was supposed to survive one disaster before we handed him another. You don't think much of your father." The observation surprised me. I think a lot of him. That's part of the problem. She nodded as if that made sense. I set tea in front of her. She wrapped both hands around the mug but didn't drink. The night it happened, she said, Matt called me around 11. He said you'd had an accident and he was going to the hospital, but he didn't come home until almost 4. He stayed with me. He said he did. I remember his coat smelled strange. Not whiskey. Something sharp. Industrial cleaner. Her fingers tightened. That's what it was. He told me a bottle of solvent had leaked in the warehouse. He had me put the coat in the washing machine before we went to bed. He had already changed at the store. How do you know? He was wearing a gray Mercer sweatshirt at the hospital. The cuffs were too short. Elise closed her eyes. Matt owned dozens of store sweatshirts. This one had belonged to Cal. I realized that only now, remembering Cal R, written in black marker inside the collar when Matt bent to adjust the hospital bed. Memory was cruel that way. It preserved details without telling you when they would become useful. He burned the coat a week later, Elise said. What? In the fire pit. He said it had a grease stain that wouldn't come out. I asked why he didn't throw it away. He told me burning was faster. Neither of us spoke. The refrigerator compressor kicked on. I expected the detail to make me feel vindicated. Instead, I pictured Elise standing by their patio door, watching her husband feed a coat into a fire, teaching herself not to ask why. Did you know he was drinking then? I asked. I knew he had been drinking more after your mother died. He said it helped him sleep. Did you know he drank at the store? No. The answer came too quickly. I waited. She looked down at her tea. I suspected. There's a difference. Not when you work as hard as I did not to find out. That honesty softened something in me. Elise had been married to Matt for 14 years. She was not timid. She managed a dental office with 9 employees and had once made an insurance representative cry without raising her voice. But around Matt, she edited herself in real time. He didn't have to demand silence. He only had to make truth exhausting. Where are you staying tonight? I asked. My cousin Tessa has a guest room. Does Matt know? He knows where she lives. Does he have a key? No. Are you sure? She gave me a tired smile. There she is. Who? Sergeant Mercer, staff sergeant. Sorry, you should be. She almost smiled again. I wrote my door code on a receipt and slid it across the table. If you need somewhere else, come here. Don't tell him the code. Elise picked up the paper but didn't put it away. I'm not leaving him, she said. I didn't ask you to. I just need a night. Then take a night. You think I'm stupid? No. I think you've had practice explaining him. Her eyes sharpened. For a second, I expected her to defend him. Instead, she folded the receipt twice and tucked it into her wallet. Before she left, she took the 6 lemons out of the bag and placed them in a bowl on my counter. I'm not carrying these to Tessa's, she said. So I'm your citrus storage now? You have an empty bowl. That's decorative. It looked sad. After she left, the apartment smelled faintly of lemon peel and her perfume. I slept for 90 minutes at a time. At 2, I dreamed the forklift was still moving even after Matt stepped off. At 4, I got up and checked the lock. At 5:30, I made coffee and stood at the window while the sky turned the color of dirty snow. By 6, I had written 3 lists, things at the store that belonged to me, things the store needed before the anniversary sale, things I was not responsible for anymore. The first list was short. 1 framed photograph, my lunch bag, a cardigan, a set of good pens, and a ceramic mug Denise had made at a paint-your-own-pottery place. It said, "Ask me about lead times" in crooked red letters. The second list filled 2 pages. The third list contained 1 word: everything. My phone rang at 6:15. Dad. I answered because blocking 1 Mercer in a 12-hour period already felt ambitious. You awake? He asked. You called me. That doesn't answer the question. Yes, I'm awake. He exhaled. I heard the truck door chime in the background. Dad was sitting in the store parking lot with his keys in the ignition, a routine he had followed every morning since Mom died. He arrived early, then spent 10 minutes preparing to enter his own building. Matt says he went to see you. He came to my apartment and refused to leave. He was trying to talk. He can try from somewhere else. Another exhale. Claire, I need you to come in. No. We've got 4 days until the sale. I'm aware. The ad file isn't where you said. I didn't say where it was. Well, where is it? Shared drive. Marketing folder. Anniversary. Final. Use the one dated February 8th, not the file Matt renamed Final New. Silence. What? He changed the coupon expiration date on Final New. If you print it, you'll be honoring the sale through March. Dad muttered something away from the phone. I closed my eyes. You're at the computer already, aren't you? I thought you said you weren't coming in. I'm not. You're still walking me through it. That was a location. Don't make it a pattern. His chair creaked. I could picture him squinting at the monitor through glasses he refused to replace because the left arm was held together with copper wire. Found it, he said. See? Wasn't hard. You called me. I would have found it. Then next time, do. His tone changed. Are you really going to act like this? Like what? Like we're strangers. Strangers usually believe you when you tell them someone hurt you. You lied about it for 3 years, Claire. What am I supposed to do with that? There it was, the first version of the story Dad could live with. Matt might have done something, but my silence had made belief optional. You could ask why I thought telling you would destroy the family. I am asking. No, you're asking why I made your morning difficult. He went quiet. I heard a key turn, then the store's alarm chirping through the phone. Come in for the sale, he said. After that, we'll sit down and sort this out. That's what Matt said 3 years ago. Help now. Truth later. This is different. It's exactly the same. People are counting on us. They're counting on me. You just don't like saying it. The alarm stopped chirping. Dad lowered his voice. Don't punish the whole store because you're angry at your brother. I'm not punishing anyone. I resigned. You walked out. Yes. In the army, did you walk out when things got hard? The question was so precisely cruel that I knew he had prepared it before calling. I looked at the 3 lists on my table. No, I said. In the army, when someone damaged equipment, hid what happened, and left another soldier injured, we didn't make him general manager. Dad hung up. I removed myself from the store group chat before he could call again. For 5 full minutes, nobody added me back. Then a private message arrived from Denise. Your sad carrots are still in the fridge. Also, Matt just printed 4,000 coupons with the March date. I stared at the message. My fingers moved automatically toward the keyboard. Then I stopped them. I wrote, Please throw out the carrots. After a moment, Denise replied, Just the carrots? I looked at the one-word list. For now, I wrote, Just the carrots. Denise did not throw out the carrots. She brought them to my apartment after closing in a cardboard box with my framed photograph, cardigan, pens, mug, and lunch bag. You said throw them out, I reminded her. The container is glass, so you don't throw away good glass. She held the box while I entered the door code. You drove 20 minutes to save a $7 container? I also brought your belongings. You led with the carrots. They've suffered enough. I let her in. Denise was 46, with cropped black hair and the permanent expression of a woman listening to someone explain a problem she had already solved. She had worked at Mercer Home Supply for 9 years and had applied for Matt's job twice without knowing the position was hereditary. She set the box on my kitchen counter, saw Elise's lemons, and looked at me. You joined a fruit cult? It's been a complicated day, clearly. I unpacked the box. The framed photograph showed Sam Ortega and me sitting on the tailgate of a truck at Fort Knox, both sunburned and holding plastic spoons over melted cups of ice cream. Matt had once asked why I kept a picture of another man at work. I told him because Sam knew how to arrive on time. Beneath the picture was the anniversary binder. I stopped. That doesn't belong to me. Denise leaned against the counter. I know. Take it back. I just thought you might want to. No. I'm not asking you to go in. Maybe look through it and tell me what's going to catch fire. If I look through it, I'll fix it. That would be terrible. I mean, I won't stop myself. She sighed and pulled the binder from the box. Fine. It goes back. Thank you. But as a citizen, I feel obligated to tell you that Matt changed the food order. Denise. He canceled the sandwiches because the barbecue truck offered him a percentage. He can't park a food truck under the tent. I told him that. The fire lane runs beside the tent. I told him that too. The town permit specifies. She tapped the binder against the counter. I closed my mouth. See? She said. You're twitching. I'm not twitching. Your left eye is trying to send Morse code. I took the glass container from the lunch bag. The carrots had leaked orange water beneath the lid. Did the countertops get unloaded? Yes. How many were damaged? 1. Which one? I thought you resigned. I also thought you threw out the carrots. We're both unreliable narrators. Denise gave me a reluctant smile. Carrara look laminate. Back corner chipped when Matt tried to rush Cal. I put the container in the sink and turned on the water. What is he telling people? I asked. Her expression changed. That you're having a breakdown. The water kept running over my hand. Specific. He said your pain medication can cause confusion. I don't take pain medication at work. I know. He knows. I know that too. I shut off the faucet. Denise looked toward the living room. Can I ask you something? You came all the way here. It would be wasteful not to. Did he really hit you with the forklift? Yes. And wait 40 minutes? Yes. She stared at me for a moment, then sat at the kitchen table without being invited. Cal heard it, she said. What? He didn't know what he heard. He was pulling out of the side lot that night and heard metal hit metal. He thought somebody dropped a pallet. Matt told everyone the shelving collapsed after Cal left. I gripped the edge of the sink. Cal had visited me once in the hospital. He brought a card signed by the warehouse crew and a bag of sugar-free candy even though I wasn't diabetic. He said the hospital gift shop had confusing energy. Why didn't he say anything? Why didn't you? The question wasn't cruel. That made it harder to answer. Because Matt asked me not to. Denise waited for the rest. He said Dad couldn't survive another loss. He said he'd get help. And you believed him? I believed I could make him keep the promise. She considered that. You know, sometimes you're very smart in a way that looks exactly like being stupid. Thank you. You're welcome. She picked up the binder and stood. At the door, she hesitated. Ray didn't repeat the breakdown thing. That's a low bar. He also didn't agree with it. Still low. I know. I just thought you'd want accurate information. I did. Accuracy was one of the ways Denise showed affection. After she left, I washed the container and put it in the cabinet. The carrots went in the trash. I left the framed photograph on the counter because deciding where it belonged felt larger than it should have. Sam called before I went to bed. I had texted him 4 words earlier. I quit the store. His reply had been, voluntarily or with fireworks? I answered, both. Now his voice came through the phone with highway noise behind it. Are you safe? He asked. Yes. Are you lying? Not about that. Good. I'm bringing breakfast tomorrow. You don't know if I'm free. You quit your job. I could have plans. Do you? No. Then my intelligence is sound. Sam Ortega had served with me for 6 of my 12 years. He was a maintenance specialist who could repair a vehicle with wire, profanity, and one tool he refused to identify. He left the Army 2 years before I did and now supervised facilities for a retirement community outside Cincinnati. He liked to say the job required the same skills with fewer explosions and better pie. He arrived the next morning with 2 breakfast burritos, a cardboard tray of coffee, and a roll of blue painter's tape. What's the tape for? I asked. I saw it in my truck and panicked. That tracks. He stepped inside, looked at the lemons, and nodded. Good. You're preventing scurvy. Those are Elise's. Is Elise living here? No. Is Matt dead? No. Then I have follow-up questions. Sam was 41, broad through the chest, with a dark beard that had gone silver at the chin. His left knee made a clicking sound when he sat. Mine didn't click. Mine preferred dramatic silence followed by betrayal. He handed me coffee and chose the chair facing the door, an old habit neither of us mentioned. I told him what happened at the store, not all of it. He already knew the official version of my warehouse injury because he had driven from Kentucky to sit beside my hospital bed and complain about the television. I told him Matt had caused it. I told him about the forklift, the whiskey, and the delay. Sam set his burrito down halfway through. He did not say anything for so long that I began straightening the paper sleeve around my coffee cup. Finally, he asked, "Was he the reason you called me from the hospital and told me not to come?" "Yes. You said Ray needed quiet." "He did. You said Matt was handling things." "He was." Sam stared at me. "Badly," I added. He pushed his chair back and stood. "Where are you going?" "For a walk." "You just got here." "I need to walk around the parking lot before I say something that becomes your problem. You don't need to do that." He looked down at me. "You do not get to hand me this 3 years late and then manage my reaction." That shut me up. He took the stairs. I knew because the elevator didn't move. 7 minutes later, he returned with cold air in his beard and sat down again. "I'm not going to hurt your brother," he said, comforting. I considered it in a general, non-actionable sense. That sounds healthy. It's growth. He picked up his burrito. "Why did you protect him?" "Dad was falling apart. The store was in trouble. Matt said he'd get treatment." "That's why he asked." "Why did you say yes?" I looked at the Fort Knox photograph on the counter. "Because I was responsible." "For what?" "Keeping things together. You didn't cause any of it. That has never been a requirement." He nodded slowly, not agreeing. "Remember Captain Heller?" he asked. "Unfortunately." The man drove a supply truck into a drainage ditch because he was trying to eat yogurt while reading a map. He said the sun was in his eyes. It was midnight. He was very committed to the defense. Sam pointed half a burrito at me. "You pulled that truck out, rewrote the convoy order, and let him tell everybody road conditions caused it. We had a movement deadline. You always had a movement deadline. That was literally our job. No, your job was logistics. Your hobby was making sure nobody experienced the consequences of being an idiot." I leaned back. "You brought breakfast to insult me?" "I contain multitudes." My phone rang on the counter. The screen showed Nora Bell. I almost let it go, but Nora had been my customer for 4 years and called only when she had already tried solving something herself. "Claire Mercer," I answered automatically. "Claire, I'm at the store, and there's a man telling me you no longer work here." I closed my eyes. If he looks expensive and tired, that's my brother. He looks shiny. Definitely Matt. Nora lowered her voice. "He says you abandoned your appointments. I resigned yesterday." "Well, that was inconsiderate. I wore real pants." "I'm sorry about the pants." Sam raised an eyebrow. Nora had planned to bring measurements for an accessible kitchen renovation. Arthritis had stiffened both her hands, and a recent hip replacement made low cabinets nearly useless. She wanted drawers instead of doors, reachable shelving, and a work surface she could use while seated without making her kitchen look like a clinic. I had promised to help her compare materials after the anniversary sale. "Matt or Denise can take your information," I said. The shiny one told me custom accessibility work costs too much, and I should buy standard cabinets before I commit to limitations. My grip tightened around the phone. He said, "What?" He also called me ma'am 7 times. I counted. "Put Denise on. She's with a delivery driver who appears to be reconsidering his career." I stood, forgetting my cane was beside the couch. Pain caught me at the hip, bright and immediate. Sam reached for the cane but didn't hand it to me. He held it where I could choose. I took it. "Nora, go home," I said. "I put on real pants for nothing? Keep them on. I'll come look at your kitchen this afternoon." Sam watched me end the call. "You just quit," he said. "I'm not going back to the store." "That's not what I said. She needs help, probably." And Matt insulted her. Definitely. So decide whether you're helping Nora or reacting to Matt. Those are different missions. I hated when he was right in military nouns. I called Nora back. "This is not a sales appointment," I said. "I don't represent Mercer Home Supply, and I'm not charging you. I'll look at the space and give you a list of questions to ask whoever does the work." "Fine. And you can wear sweatpants. I've already suffered enough." When we disconnected, Sam slid the other burrito toward me. "Eat," he said. "I'm not hungry. You're limping in your own kitchen and volunteering for an unpaid site visit. I'm helping one person." "Sure." "What?" "Nothing." "You made a face. My face is supportive." "Your face thinks I've joined a fruit cult." He looked at the lemons. "I'm willing to wait for additional evidence." I sat down and unwrapped the burrito. For the first time since leaving the store, I had somewhere to be that Matt had not chosen, Dad had not assigned, and nobody could claim I owed them. It scared me more than the warehouse had. Nora's kitchen had been designed by a tall man who hated bending and had never once considered sitting down. The wall cabinets climbed nearly to the ceiling. The microwave lived above the stove. Every lower shelf required a deep squat and an act of faith. A narrow island divided the room so efficiently that Nora had to turn sideways to move between it and the refrigerator. "My husband designed it," she said. "Frank was 6'4" and believed counters should meet him halfway. He cooked? He opened wine. That explains the priorities. A built-in rack held 16 bottles within easy reach. Nora nodded. He was very accessible. She moved carefully, favoring the hip she'd had replaced. Her silver hair was pinned with 2 pencils, and she wore the real pants she had threatened me with, plus a red sweater and house slippers shaped like bears. She had been widowed for 6 years and still referred to Frank in the present tense whenever discussing his bad decisions. "Sam came with me because he said he wanted to see the kitchen." "You don't care about the kitchen," I told him. "I care deeply about kitchens. You own one pan. It's a versatile pan." He stayed near the doorway while Nora showed me the problems. He didn't interrupt. That was one of the things I trusted about him. Sam could fill silence when necessary, but he didn't treat every quiet second like a jar he had to screw shut. I watched Nora reach for a plate. She raised her right arm, stopped when her shoulder tightened, then used a wooden spoon to drag the plate toward the edge of the shelf. "How often do you do that?" I asked. "Only when I eat." She showed me a drawer that jammed, a corner cabinet she hadn't opened in 2 years, and a pantry door too narrow for the rolling stool she used on bad days. Beneath the sink, cleaning supplies occupied the only cabinet she could reach comfortably. "Everybody wants to start with new cabinets," she said. "I want to start with not dropping dinner." That's the right place to start. I took measurements while she moved through her normal routine. Coffee, plate, skillet, trash, dishwasher. The path doubled back on itself 6 times. At the store, Matt would have started with the most expensive cabinet line and worked backward until the customer's life fit the brochure. I started with Nora's coffee. The machine sat beneath a cabinet, too far back for her to fill without twisting. I moved it to the end of the counter near the sink and asked her to try again. She filled it without lifting the reservoir. Nora stared at the machine. "Well," she said, "that's irritating." "Why? I've been mad at that thing for a year. You're still allowed to be mad. It should have spoken up." Sam leaned against the doorway. Appliances hate accountability. I sketched a new layout on graph paper. Drawer bases instead of lower cabinets. Pull-down shelving in 2 upper sections. A lowered work surface near the window, wide enough for a chair but designed to look intentional. The island could be shortened rather than removed, preserving storage while opening the turn between the sink and refrigerator. "You don't need to gut everything," I said. "The cabinet boxes on this wall are good. Reface them. Replace the hardware. Spend the money on the sections that affect how you move." Nora studied the sketch. The shiny man said custom changes would ruin resale value. The shiny man's office has a mini fridge full of protein drinks that expired last summer. That doesn't answer the resale question. It lowers his credibility. Sam coughed into his fist. I pointed to the lowered counter. A future owner can use this as a desk, baking station, or coffee bar. Wider walkways help everybody. Drawers are easier to use whether your joints hurt or not. Good accessibility looks like the room understands people have bodies. Nora traced one line with her finger. Frank would hate losing the wine rack. Frank is not currently using the kitchen. He'd still have an opinion. Then we'll put the wine somewhere he'd find inefficient. She smiled. For the next hour, I listed decisions in order. Get 2 cabinet bids. Have a plumber confirm whether the sink could move 8 inches. Check electrical before choosing the microwave drawer. Pick flooring before finalizing toe kick heights. Do not let anyone remove the old cabinets until every new component had a delivery date. Nora watched my pen move. What do I pay you? Nothing. That sounds suspicious. I said this wasn't a sales appointment. You've been here 90 minutes, I offered. I accepted. That doesn't make your time worthless. The word caught me off guard. Sam looked out the window, suddenly fascinated by Nora's bird feeder. I'm between jobs, I said. You quit yesterday. That's not between, that's adjacent. I'm helping you make a plan, and I'm asking what that costs. Consider it an apology for the real pants. She folded her arms. I had seen Nora reject a cabinet quote over a $6 hinge. She could outweight granite. Fine, I said. Buy lunch next time. Next time? You'll need help comparing the bids. So there's a next time, if you want one. She held out her hand. I shook it before realizing I had entered some kind of arrangement. Good, she said, I want one. My phone buzzed against the table. Dad. I let it stop. Then Nora's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and made a face. Mercer Home Supply. Don't answer on my account, I'm answering on mine. She put the call on speaker. Nora Bell, she said. Matt's voice filled the kitchen. Mrs. Bell, this is Matt Mercer. I wanted to personally apologize for the confusion this morning. You called me ma'am 7 times. A pause. I apologize if my respect came across the wrong way. Sam lowered his head. Matt continued. Denise mentioned that Claire might have contacted you. I contacted her. Right. Well, Claire is no longer affiliated with Mercer Home Supply. She's dealing with some health matters, and I'd hate for you to make decisions based on information the store can't stand behind. I reached for the phone. Nora moved it out of reach. Which information do you object to? She asked. Excuse me? She says I can keep the cabinets on the west wall. She says moving the sink 8 inches may require plumbing work. She says to check electrical capacity before ordering a microwave drawer. Which part can't you stand behind? Matt hesitated. I haven't seen the space. Then you're poorly positioned to disagree. I'm just trying to make sure my sister doesn't overextend herself. Nora looked at my cane resting against the table. Your sister is sitting down, she said. You sound more overextended than she does. She ended the call. I stared at her. What? She asked. He interrupted a consultation. This isn't a consultation. Then stop giving me useful information. Sam laughed. I gathered my papers before Nora could negotiate further. She packed slices of pound cake into a plastic container and ignored my refusal. At the door, she touched my forearm. I don't know what happened at that store, she said. I don't need to, but your brother talked about your health like it belonged to him. I looked back at the kitchen, at the island crowding the refrigerator and the coffee machine finally near the sink. He's had practice. Practice is not ownership. She handed me the cake. Outside, Sam waited until we reached my truck. You were good in there, he said. I moved a coffee maker. You watched her use the room before you told her what the room needed. That's basic. It should be. I unlocked the truck. Don't start. I didn't start anything. You're making the face. My face is supportive. Your face wants me to print business cards. Your face wants you to print business cards. My face wants anti-inflammatory medication. He opened his car door. Those things can coexist. When I got home, Dad's truck was parked outside my building. He stood in the lobby beside the repaired elevator, holding his old leather work gloves. He had changed out of his store polo into a flannel shirt, which meant he wanted this to look like a father visiting his daughter instead of an employer confronting someone who quit. I called, he said. I noticed. You didn't answer. I also noticed that. His gaze dropped to the cake container, then to my cane. Where were you? Visiting Nora Bell. Matt said you're soliciting customers. Matt said Nora needed to commit to her limitations. Dad rubbed his forehead. He phrased that badly. He thought it beautifully, though. Claire. The elevator opened. Neither of us entered. Dad flexed his gloves between his hands. Can we go upstairs? Are you here as my father or the owner of Mercer Home Supply? His mouth tightened. Does everything need categories with you? Yes. Categories prevent forklifts from being stored with liquor. He looked away first. We rode up in silence. Inside my apartment, Dad noticed the Fort Knox photograph on the counter. He picked it up, studied Sam's face, and put it down exactly where it had been. The sale coupons are wrong, he said. So I heard. 4,000 of them. That's a lot of March. He did not smile. We can stamp the correct date on each one. You can. It'll take hours. Probably. He set his gloves on the table. I'm trying to understand what you want. I want you to believe me. I'm trying. Believing me isn't a household project, Dad. You don't need 3 estimates. You lied. So did Matt. You're my daughter. I expected better from you. There it was again. Matt's failure lowered expectations for Matt. Mine raised charges against me. Did he admit it? I asked. Dad's jaw shifted. He admitted the forklift made contact with you. Made contact. He says you stepped behind him. He was reversing toward the loading platform after I told him to shut it down. He says he panicked afterward. For 40 minutes? He says it wasn't that long. I watched the clock. You'd just been hit. Perception gets distorted. I felt my thigh begin to tighten. Dad saw me shift and pulled out a chair. Sit. No. For God's sake, Claire, this is what I mean. I'm trying to help. Then ask him where the whiskey bottle went. Dad stopped moving the chair. What bottle? The one he claims was broken. Elise washed his coat because it smelled like cleaner. A week later, he burned it. For the first time, Dad had no immediate answer. He looked toward the bowl of lemons as if one might offer a reasonable explanation. You talked to Elise? She came here. Matt said she went to Tessa's because you upset her. Matt says many things. Dad picked up his gloves again, then put them down. The store can't take this right now. I laughed softly. That's exactly what he said in the hospital. I'm not defending him. You came here to accuse me of stealing a customer. I came here to ask you to come back through the sale. No. Take sick leave afterward. I'm not sick. Medical leave, then. I resigned. His face hardened. You're willing to watch everything we built fall apart over this? I looked at him across my kitchen table. No, Dad. I'm willing to find out whether I was the only thing holding it up. He picked up his gloves. At the door, he paused without turning. Were you ever going to tell me? I thought I did. When? Every time I asked you to see me instead of the version of Matt that needed protecting. He left without saying goodbye. Through the window, I watched him sit in his truck for 10 minutes before starting the engine. He'd always needed time to prepare before entering the store. Apparently, he needed it before leaving me, too. Dad left his gloves on my table. I noticed them after his truck disappeared. Brown leather gone smooth across the palms, one thumb darkened by decades of machine oil. He had owned those gloves longer than he had owned most of his furniture. Leaving them behind meant he had been more shaken than he wanted me to know. I took a picture and texted him. You left these. The message showed delivered, then read. He didn't answer. An hour later, my door code beeped. I picked up the cane and moved into the hallway just as Elise eased the door open. She held the receipt with the code written on it in one hand, like she expected a security review. I knocked first, she said. I didn't hear you. I knocked quietly. That defeats the primary function. I can leave. You already committed a 4-digit number to memory. Come in. She stepped inside but kept her coat on. Her eyes looked swollen, though her makeup had been repaired with the precision of drywall over water damage. I need a favor, she said. Is it about lemons? No. Then I'll need details. I need to get clothes from the house. Okay, Matt's at the store until 6. I waited. She looked down at the receipt. Would you come with me? The answer formed before she finished asking. Yes. Of course. Tell me what to carry. Tell me who needs moving and where. Sam's voice arrived behind it. Decide which mission you're on. Do you want company? I asked. Or do you want me to keep Matt away if he shows up? Elise considered the distinction. Company. I can do that. You don't have to protect me. Good, because my afternoon rate for brother removal is outrageous. She smiled without much energy. Matt and Elise lived in a 2-story brick house 15 minutes from my apartment. The front lawn was too clean for February, every dead leaf removed, every shrub wrapped in burlap. Matt liked evidence of maintenance more than maintenance itself. Inside, the house smelled like cedar candles and furniture polish. Elise locked the door behind us. He might notice the alarm was turned off, she said. Can he see that from his phone? Yes. How long do you need? 20 minutes. Then we'll leave in 19. She went upstairs with 2 empty suitcases. I stayed in the kitchen because roaming through their marriage felt indecent. A row of framed photographs covered the refrigerator. Matt and Elise at Niagara Falls. Matt and Dad holding an oversized ribbon at the store's 40th anniversary. Mom laughing at a restaurant, one hand raised to block the camera. Me in army dress blues beside Matt at a family wedding, his arm around my shoulders. A magnet held an appointment card for couples counseling dated 8 months earlier. The appointment had been crossed out. I looked away. On the counter, a wooden sign read, "Bless this mess." There was no mess. Even the mail had been stacked by size. Elise called from upstairs. Claire? I followed her voice to the bedroom. She stood before the closet, holding a gray dress in one hand and a pair of jeans in the other. The open suitcase on the bed contained 4 blouses, 1 shoe, and a framed photograph turned face down. I don't know what to pack, she said. How long are you staying away? I don't know. Pack for 5 days. What happens after 5 days? You do laundry. She stared at me, then began laughing. It broke in the middle and became crying. I took the dress from her before it slipped off the hanger. I'm sorry, she said. For what? This is humiliating. No, it's laundry. I'm 44 years old, and I can't decide how many pairs of underwear I need to leave my own house. 7. You said 5 days. I believe in reserves. She wiped beneath her eyes. I helped her pack without making decisions she didn't ask me to make. 5 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, the gray dress because she held it twice, medication from the bathroom, chargers, shoes that matched the weather instead of whatever fear told her she deserved. When she opened the hall closet for a small overnight bag, a bottle rolled out of one of Matt's work boots. It hit the hardwood, spun, and stopped against my cane. Bourbon. Half full. Elise stood very still. I bent, picked it up, and set it on the console table. How long has that been there? She asked. I don't know. I cleaned this closet before Thanksgiving, then sometime after Thanksgiving. He told me he hadn't had a drink in 11 months. I did not say anything. She opened the other boot, empty. Then she searched the pockets of his winter coats. I wanted to stop her, but it wasn't my house, and it wasn't my denial. She found 2 miniature bottles in the green parka he wore to shovel snow. One was empty. The other still had a hotel label around its neck. He doesn't travel, she said. Hotels sell alcohol to locals too. Why are you helping his story? I'm not. I'm keeping the facts the size they are. She looked at me sharply. There were moments when people wanted anger to enlarge evidence because anger needed a room big enough to live in. I understood that. I also knew what happened when you made claims wider than the truth. Men like Matt found the weak edge and pulled until the whole thing looked torn. The facts are that he hid alcohol in his boots and coat, I said. That's enough. The alarm keypad near the front door chimed. Elise's face changed. He's here. The garage door opened beneath us. I checked the time. 5:12. He saw the alarm, she said. Take the suitcases downstairs. What are you going to do? Leave with you. That's it? That was the plan. Matt entered through the kitchen before we reached the bottom step. He wore his store polo beneath a winter jacket and carried the anniversary binder under one arm. His eyes found the suitcases first, then me. "You've got to be kidding." "Good afternoon," I said. He kicked the garage door closed. "Elise, what is she doing here? I asked her to come. I'm talking to my wife." "Then look at her." His head turned toward me. "You need to stay out of my marriage. I'm helping carry a suitcase. You're poisoning her against me." Elise came down the last stair. "The bourbon was in your boot." Silence. Matt looked toward the console table. His face did not show surprise. It showed calculation. "That's old. I cleaned the closet in November. I forgot it was there. You told me you stopped." "I did. When?" He glanced at me again. "I'm not discussing this in front of Claire. You discussed her medication in front of the entire store. That is completely different." "How?" "Because she's unstable right now." Elise put down the suitcase. "Don't," she said. Matt blinked. "Don't what?" "Don't make her sick because you need her to be wrong." His mouth opened, then closed. It was the first time I had heard Elise interrupt his version before it was fully built. He set the binder on the kitchen counter. "You don't know what she's doing. I know what you did. You know what she says I did. You hid alcohol in a work boot. That has nothing to do with the accident. I didn't say it did." Matt looked at me as if I had arranged the exchange. "Dad told me you're taking Mercer customers now. Nora asked me to look at her kitchen while she was standing in our store. After you suggested she commit to her limitations, I was trying to manage expectations. You should practice on your own." He stepped closer. My body reacted before my mind did. I shifted my right foot back, cane angled, free hand open, not dramatic, not threatening, just ready. Matt saw it. His face tightened with hurt, as if my readiness accused him of something new. "You think I'm going to hit you? I think you don't like being told no. I have never hit you. You drove a forklift into me. It was an accident. The impact was." He stared at me. Behind him, Elise lifted the suitcases. "We're leaving," she said. Matt turned. "You're seriously going with her? I'm going to Tessa's." "For how long?" "I don't know. You can't just walk out whenever things get hard." The sentence hung between us. Elise looked at me. I looked at Matt. Even he seemed to hear it. "You should call Ray," I said. "Apparently that line runs in the family. Don't drag Dad into this. He's been in it since the warehouse." "No, you put him in it yesterday because you wanted to hurt me." I picked up one suitcase. The weight pulled at my hip. Elise reached for it, but I adjusted my grip. Matt blocked the path to the front door. "Move," I said. "Not until she talks to me." "I have been talking," Elise said. "You've been repeating Claire." She stepped beside me. "I found the bottle before she did. I forgot it was there. You burned the coat." The color left his face. For 1 second, nobody breathed. Then Matt looked at me. "You told her. She remembered. It had grease on it." "You said solvent," Elise replied. "Same difference." "No," I said, "it isn't." Matt's jaw worked. Elise opened the front door. He did not try to stop us again. Outside, she loaded the suitcases into her car while I leaned against my truck and waited for the pain in my side to recede. "I'm sorry," she said. "You've apologized enough for today. I thought you were exaggerating." "About what?" "How quickly he turns everything around. He's had practice." She looked toward the house. Matt stood behind the front window, one hand braced against the frame. "Do you think he knows he does it?" "Yes." My phone rang. Dad. Matt must have called him the moment the door closed. I answered. Dad didn't say hello. Was the loading door open that night? I glanced at the house. Yes. Matt says it was closed because of the snow. It was open. Snow blew across the floor while I was waiting. Dad breathed quietly into the phone. "Why are you asking?" Cal remembers seeing it open when he left. That was all he said. Then he hung up. Across the driveway, Matt's garage door began to close. For the first time, Dad had checked one piece of Matt's story without asking me to make it easier for him. The first contractor talked to Nora's refrigerator for 20 minutes. He stood in the middle of the kitchen with his thumbs hooked into his belt, explaining cabinet construction while Nora sat 3 feet to his left. Every time she asked a question, he turned toward me to answer it. "I'd like the work surface lowered here," Nora said, tapping the sketch. He looked at me. "She'll lose storage." "She knows," I said. "It could affect resale. She knows that too." Nora raised one hand. "Do I need to move closer to the refrigerator?" He blinked. "You seem to think it hired you." Sam, who had volunteered to examine the plumbing beneath the sink, made a choking noise inside the cabinet. The contractor recovered badly. "I'm just saying custom accessibility features can limit your market." "I'm 68, Nora said. "My current market is reaching a skillet without falling over." He wrote a quote anyway. It included tearing out every cabinet, replacing the good hardwood floor, and installing a decorative range hood Nora had never requested. He used the word investment 14 times and the word arthritis 0. After he left, Nora put his brochure in the recycling bin. "Shouldn't you wait for the price?" I asked. "No, it could be competitive." He called my kitchen a product. It is technically made of products. So is he. I don't want him in my house either. The second contractor was a woman named Priya Shah, who arrived in muddy boots, noticed the floor, and took them off without being asked. She watched Nora move through the kitchen before opening her sample case. When she suggested changing the island, she crouched beside Nora's chair so they could both see the plan at the same angle. I wrote fewer notes during that meeting, not because Priya missed things, because she didn't. When she left, Nora turned to me. "How much? For what?" "You." Still nothing. Wrong answer. I stacked the cabinet samples. "You haven't hired anyone yet. I'm hiring Priya unless her quote requires me to sell a kidney. You'll compare the quotes, check the order, coordinate the plumber, and make sure nobody destroys my kitchen before the cabinets arrive. That's a job. Yes, I don't have a business. You have a phone and a calendar. Those are not the same." They were at Mercer Home Supply. That landed with uncomfortable accuracy. Sam emerged from beneath the sink and wiped his hands on a rag. "Your shut-off valves need replacing," he told Nora. Then he looked at me. "And your argument needs replacing too." I didn't ask. Neither did the valves. Nora named an hourly rate higher than what the store had paid me. I laughed. She didn't. "That's too much," I said. "It's less than the cost of fixing one badly timed delivery." "I'm not insured for project work. Then don't touch tools. Coordinate people who are. I need to look into what that requires." "Good. Bill me for the looking." I stared at her. For years, Dad had described my work as helping out. Matt called it keeping organized. Customers called it Claire will know. None of those phrases appeared on a paycheck. "Let me think," I said. Nora folded her hands over the top of her cane. "Think by Monday." My phone rang before I could object. Dad. I stepped into the living room to answer. "Can you come to the store tonight?" he asked. The question was so direct that I checked the screen to make sure it was him. "Why?" "I want you to show me what happened." My hand tightened around the phone. "I already told you. I want to see where everyone was standing. I'm not reenacting it for you. No. Just show me. Will Matt be there?" "No." The answer came quickly. "Cal, I sent everybody home at 5. I'll be alone." I looked through the doorway. Nora and Sam were examining drawer pull samples. Sam held up a polished brass handle, and Nora made a face like he had offered her a dead fish. 7 o'clock, I said. Dad was waiting inside the front entrance when I arrived. The anniversary tent covered half the parking lot, its white sides snapping in the wind. Someone had parked the barbecue truck beneath it after all. A power cable ran across the main walkway under a rectangle of cardboard. I stared at it. Dad followed my gaze. "I know," he said. "That sentence is doing a lot of work. We're moving it in the morning. The truck or the trip hazard?" "Both." Inside, the store looked ready for a celebration and a hostage exchange. Gold streamers sagged above the registers. Boxes of corrected coupons sat near the entrance, each stamped with the proper expiration date in purple ink. One display read, 50 years of expert advice. The word expert had begun peeling off at both ends. Dad locked the door behind me. "You want coffee?" he asked. "No." "There's some left. It's 7 at night." "That's not an answer." "No, Dad." He walked toward the warehouse. I followed slowly. The anniversary banner still hung crooked over the service counter, but someone had turned family right side up. Dad stopped beside the loading platform. "I talked to Cal," he said. "You mentioned that. He says he heard something after he pulled out. Metal hitting metal." His eyes moved to me. "Denise told you?" She said he thought it was a pallet. Dad nodded. The warehouse felt different, empty. Every sound traveled farther. The heaters clicked. Wind pressed against the loading door. Somewhere in the building, a loose vent rattled with the irregular rhythm of breathing. Dad pointed to the floor. "Where were you?" I placed the rubber tip of my cane beside a yellow line faded by years of tires. "Here." "And Matt?" "On the forklift." Which direction was he facing? "Toward aisle 3. I was behind him, but not in the travel lane. "You said you told him to shut it down." "I did." "Why?" "He was drinking." "You saw him drink?" "I saw the bottle in his office. I heard his speech. I watched him miss the ignition twice." Dad's face tightened at the last detail. "Why didn't you take the keys?" "I ordered him off. That's not what I asked. There were his categories. Mine were logistics. His were blame." "Because he was a grown man operating equipment in his father's warehouse," I said. "I thought a direct order from the person running the floor would be enough." "You weren't running the floor then." "I was always running the floor. You just hadn't put it on paper." He looked away. I showed him where the forklift reversed, where the rear corner caught my right side, where my body struck the steel edge of the platform. Dad crouched near the rail. The platform had been repainted twice since the accident. Matt organized the first repaint during my hospital stay because, he said, the warehouse needed freshening up before spring. A stack of discontinued laminate samples now rested against the section where I had been pinned. Dad pulled one sample away. The rail behind it bowed inward. Beneath the gray paint, a thin crescent had flaked off, exposing older yellow paint and bare metal. Dad touched it. "Was that there before?" "No." "You're sure?" I inventoried this warehouse when I came home. I measured every damaged rack and barrier. Why? Because nobody else had. He stood. "Matt says you fell into the forklift after the shelving shifted. There was no shelving here. He says the boxes were stacked beside the platform. He moved them after." Dad looked toward aisle 3. The nearest shelving stood 8 feet away. "He moved all those boxes by himself?" "Some of them. He dumped smaller cartons around me. He used my phone to check the time. He kept asking where the whiskey bottle went because I could see it from the floor." Dad rubbed a hand over his mouth. "What did you say?" "I told him it rolled under his desk." "And then?" "He took it to the restroom. When he came back, he smelled like cleaner." The side door opened. I turned. Matt stepped into the warehouse. He wore a dark coat over his store clothes. His face was flushed from the cold, or anger, or both. I looked at Dad. "You said he wouldn't be here." "I didn't call him." Matt held up his phone. "The alarm app told me someone entered." "You came because Dad entered his own store?" I asked. "I came because I knew you'd do this. Show him the loading platform? Stage a whole performance." Dad moved between us. "Matt, look at the rail." Matt didn't. "I've seen the rail." "Was it bent that night?" "I don't know. Probably. Claire says it wasn't. Claire says a lot of things now." Dad's voice hardened. "Look at it." Matt finally walked over. His gaze touched the bowed steel and moved away. "That damage has been there for years." "Cal says it wasn't. Cal doesn't inspect rails. Claire did." Matt laughed once. Of course she did. His contempt was automatic. He heard that I had done necessary work and responded as though I had confessed to a character defect. Dad heard it too. "Why did you repaint the platform while she was in the hospital?" he asked. Matt froze. Then he shrugged. It looked bad. Mom had just died. Claire was in surgery. The store was behind on bills, and you decided to paint a loading dock? It needed paint. What color was the old forklift? Dad, come on. What color? Yellow. You know that. Dad looked at the crescent beneath the gray paint. Yellow on yellow. It proved impact, not intent. It proved the place I had described, not the whiskey, not the delay. But it made Matt's story smaller. Matt saw that. "You're seriously taking her side because two yellow things touched?" he asked. "I'm asking questions." "No. You brought her here after hours to build a case against me. I didn't bring you. You didn't have to. You knew I'd get the alert." Dad went still. I understood before he spoke. "You changed the alarm settings," he said. Matt blinked. "After Claire quit, you added yourself to entry alerts. You knew whenever she came in before opening, whenever she stayed late. I'm the general manager. You never told me. It's a security feature. It's surveillance," I said. Matt turned toward me. "Not everything is about you. No, sometimes it's about a bottle in a work boot." He stepped closer. Dad put one hand against Matt's chest. It wasn't a shove, barely pressure at all. Matt reacted like he had been struck. "Are you kidding me?" "Back up," Dad said. "From her, from me." The warehouse became silent again. Dad had never placed himself between us before. He had always stood beside Matt and called it the middle. I wanted the moment to satisfy me. It didn't. Matt looked at Dad with a kind of naked disbelief. Under all the excuses and charm was a son who had built his life around one fixed fact. Ray Mercer would turn toward him first. "Fine," he said. He pulled his keys from his pocket and threw them onto the service counter. They skidded past mine, still lying where I had left them days earlier. Since we're all making dramatic exits. Dad looked at the keys but didn't pick them up. "You're expected here at 6 tomorrow." Matt smiled without humor. "Ask Claire. She knows everything." He left through the side door. Dad stood with his hand still half raised. I folded my cane, not because I no longer needed it, but because I needed something precise to do. "Tomorrow's the sale," Dad said. "I know." He looked toward the anniversary banners, the boxes of corrected coupons, the dark office where Matt had once hidden a bottle. "Are you going to ask me to come in?" I said. He took a long breath. "No." It was the first honest kindness he had offered me since I told the truth. Dad walked me to the front door without asking another question. Outside, the tent snapped in the wind, and the barbecue truck's metal chimney knocked against a support pole. He looked at it, then at me. "I'm moving it," he said. I didn't say anything. "You were about to." I resigned. "My face hasn't." He almost smiled. Through the glass behind us, Matt's keys glittered on the service counter beside mine. Dad had not picked up either set. "You think he'll come tomorrow?" he asked. "Yes." "You sound sure. He won't let people celebrate the store without seeing him in the pictures." Dad flinched, and I regretted the accuracy, not the sentence. I unfolded my cane. "Claire." I waited. He looked as if he wanted to say several things, none of which had passed inspection. "Drive careful. You too." At 5:40 the next morning, I woke before my alarm. My body believed I was late. Anniversary sale day had lived in my calendar for 7 months. I had scheduled the tent, newspaper inserts, radio spots, temporary registers, vendor demonstrations, and a coffee delivery large enough to hydrate a small municipality. At 6, I was supposed to walk the store with Denise. At 6:15, Cal would test both forklifts. At 6:30, Louis would check the propane heaters and complain about the cinnamon rolls until someone gave him one. Instead, I lay in bed listening to the radiator clank. At 6:03, I got up and made coffee. My Mercer polo hung at the back of the closet. I had washed and pressed it earlier in the week. Gold thread spelled Claire above the pocket. Dad had ordered the anniversary shirts himself and chosen a font that made every name look like it belonged to a bowling team. I took it off the hanger. Then I folded it and placed it in the donation bag beside my dresser. My phone buzzed. Denise had sent a photograph of the store entrance. The barbecue truck was gone from beneath the tent, but someone had stretched an extension cord across the doorway at shin height. Her message read, "Not requesting assistance, merely preserving the scene for future historians." I replied with a photograph of my coffee. She sent back, "Cruel." Dad called at 6:22. "Where's the food truck permit?" he asked. "Good morning." "Good morning. Where is it?" "Anniversary binder, permits tab." I'm looking at the tab. Clear sleeve behind the tent inspection. There was paper shuffling. "Found it. You're welcome." He didn't hang up. In the background, Matt was telling someone to move a table. His voice carried the bright authority he used when there were witnesses. "He showed up," I said. 6:10. That's early for him. He says his keys are inside." "They are." "He says you set him up." "I also control sunrise." Dad exhaled through his nose. "Anything else?" I asked. "No." "Then have a good sail." "Claire." I waited. "Thank you for telling me where the permit was." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't belief. It was the first time he had thanked me without attaching another task. "You're welcome," I said again. Nora called at 9 to announce that Priya's quote had arrived and contained no organs for sale. I drove over with my laptop and spent the morning at her kitchen table. Priya's proposal was clear, but the cabinet delivery estimate assumed the plumbing and electrical work would be complete first. The plumber couldn't confirm a date until someone sent photographs of the crawlspace access. The electrician had included a new panel Nora didn't appear to need. I made calls, not dramatic calls. Nobody confessed anything. No secret account opened. I asked questions until vague promises became dates and broad estimates became line items. At the store, that work disappeared into the phrase, "Claire handles it." At Nora's table, she watched it happen. "You just saved me $2,800, she said after the electrician removed the unnecessary panel upgrade. I asked him to explain it. He explained it right off the bill. He may have misunderstood the existing service. He may have misunderstood that I know you. She wrote a check and slid it across the table. I looked at the amount. "We didn't agree on this. I proposed a rate. You said you'd think. I'm still thinking. Think after you deposit it." Nora. Claire. She had captured my tone with irritating precision. "I'm not set up for this," I said. "You brought a laptop, graph paper, measuring tape, and 3 colors of pen. That's normal." Sam, who had stopped by to replace Nora's shutoff valves, spoke from beneath the sink. "It is not. You carry painter's tape for emotional emergencies. It worked, didn't it?" Nora tapped the check. "What would you tell me if someone had done useful work and was refusing payment because accepting it made her uncomfortable?" "I'd tell you to pay her." "Wonderful. We agree." I folded the check and put it in my wallet. The paper felt heavier than it was. By noon, we had a preliminary schedule. No demolition until the cabinets reached the regional warehouse. Priya would verify dimensions before ordering. The plumber and electrician would work on the same day to reduce the time Nora went without a functional kitchen. I added 2 buffer days because weather, delivery trucks, and human optimism had never met peacefully. Nora studied the schedule. "This makes me less nervous." "That's the point. I thought the point was cabinets. Cabinets are easy. Uncertainty is expensive." Sam slid out from beneath the sink. "There's your business card." I threw a pencil at him. He caught it. On the drive home, traffic backed up near Mercer Home Supply. The anniversary sale had filled the lot. Cars lined both sides of the access road, and the white tent bulged in the wind above a crowd of winter coats. A local radio van sat near the entrance. Someone in a foam hammer costume waved at passing cars with the exhausted dignity of a man reconsidering every choice that led him there. I could have taken the side street. Instead, I stayed in traffic. The store looked successful from the road. Gold balloons, full parking lot, customers carrying boxes. Matt stood beneath the tent beside a banner, smiling while someone photographed him with Dad. He had been right about the pictures. The line moved 3 feet. Luis came around the side of the building, pushing a hand truck loaded with bags of ice. He saw my truck and raised one hand. I waved back. Then a woman tapped on my passenger window. I recognized Marcia Klein, a customer who had remodeled 3 bathrooms and hated every faucet ever manufactured. I lowered the window. "Claire, they said you quit." "I did. Why?" "Long story." "Who's going to fix my vanity order?" Denise can help. She's trying to manage the registers because one of them keeps printing blank receipts. Of course it was. Matt had ignored the software update because it required restarting the system overnight. I kept that thought inside my head, where it was no longer billable. "Leave Denise your information," I said. "She knows what to do." Marcia leaned closer. "Your brother offered me store credit. That sounds generous. He offered everybody store credit. A coupon scanned wrong." Behind her, a cluster of customers stood around Matt. Several held purple stamped coupons. The expiration date had been corrected. The discount code had not. Matt looked across the lot and saw me. Even at that distance, I watched his expression change. He excused himself from the customers and walked toward my truck. Traffic remained still. Marcia noticed him coming. "I should go complain," she said. "I believe in you." She headed toward the tent. Matt reached my window and bent down. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting for traffic. You're checking up on us." I was at Nora's. His eyes dropped to the notebook on my passenger seat. "So you were taking customers. She hired a cabinet contractor." "Through us?" "No. Unbelievable." A horn sounded behind me. Traffic moved, then stopped again. "I didn't tell her where to buy cabinets," I said. "I helped her compare bids. That's our job. Then you should have done it." He lowered his voice. "You want this to fail." I looked past him. Dad stood beneath the tent watching us. He was not smiling now. "No," I said. "I want it to function without using me up." Matt opened his mouth. Dad called his name. "Not mine. Matt. We need you at the registers." "I'm talking to Claire. The registers. Now." Matt straightened. Dad's gaze met mine across the lot. He raised one hand, not quite a wave. I returned it. Traffic cleared. I drove away. The sale ended at 5. Dad arrived at my apartment at 6:30, still wearing his gold-lettered polo. A purple ink stain covered one cuff. I opened the door. "I came for my gloves," he said. "They're on the table." He stepped inside and looked at the Fort Knox photograph, the lemons, the bowl where the lemons had begun to soften. "How'd it go?" I asked. "Good." I waited. "Crowded," he added. "That's good." Register 2 failed. The discount code was wrong. The coffee ran out before noon, the food truck blew a fuse, and somebody stole the foam hammer's shoes. Still good. We did more sales than last year. "That's good. Half of them have to be adjusted Monday. Less good." He picked up his gloves. "Matt told vendors the coupon mistake was yours." My face stayed still. "What did you tell them?" "That you hadn't made the file he used." The answer surprised me. Dad pulled on one glove, then the other. He didn't know about Final New, he said. He made Final New. I know that now. We stood in my kitchen with the refrigerator humming between sentences. "Cal showed me the old maintenance notebook," Dad said. "The loading rail wasn't listed as damaged before your accident. A maintenance notebook was not proof of everything. Dad knew that, but he had gone looking." "Did you ask Matt?" "He said Cal missed it. And you?" "I think Matt depends on other people missing things." The sentence cost him. I could hear it. He flexed his gloved hands. "I don't know what to do with him," he said. "For most of my life, that question would have activated something in me. A plan, a schedule, a phone call, an exit route that let everybody keep their dignity. This time, I let it remain his question. For once, I said, don't do anything for him." Dad looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded and left wearing the gloves he had forgotten when he still believed I would carry his confusion too. After Dad left, I took Nora's check from my wallet and set it on the table. I did not deposit it. For 2 days, I moved it around the apartment as if it were a coaster with strong opinions. It went from the table to the counter, from the counter to the Fort Knox photograph, then beneath the bowl of lemons when I needed to clear space. Sam found it there while making coffee. "You refrigerate checks?" he asked. "That's not the refrigerator, so you know where things are." Progress. I haven't decided whether to accept it. You accepted it in Nora's kitchen. I was under pressure. From a 68-year-old woman in bear slippers. She's formidable. He held the check up to the light. "What are you afraid happens if you deposit this?" "I become responsible." "You're already responsible." "I become officially responsible." He placed the check beside my phone. That's usually the part where people pay you. I used the mobile banking app before I could develop another argument. The screen displayed "Deposit accepted." Nothing else happened. No alarm. No committee arrived to evaluate whether I deserved money for work I had done. Sam nodded. "Tragic." "You're a professional now. I deposited 1 check. Every empire begins with banking technology. No empires. Fine. Every sensible sole proprietorship begins with panic and poor branding." I threw a lemon at him. He caught that too. Nora's project moved forward in increments too small to look impressive from outside. Priya revised the cabinet plan. The plumber sent crawlspace photographs that appeared to have been taken during an earthquake. The electrician confirmed Nora's existing panel was sufficient and then tried to add 6 recessed lights she did not want. I made a schedule, a decision log, and a contact sheet. When Priya asked for my business name for her records, I said, "Claire Mercer." "That's your name. It's what I'm using." "Mercer Project Coordination?" "No." "Mercer Access Solutions?" "That sounds like I sell stair lifts from a van." Priya smiled. "You need something for the invoice." I looked at Nora, who sat at the table testing cabinet handles with both hands. Put independent coordinator. Very mysterious. It describes the work. It describes a spy with a clipboard. Nora held up a brushed nickel pull. This one. She could grasp it without curling her fingers tightly. Priya added it to the order. I wrote down the model number. That was the work, not the cabinet line, not the glossy rendering. The moment Nora's hand closed around something without pain. At the store, the anniversary sale continued long after the tent came down. Incorrect discounts had to be adjusted. Special orders had been entered twice. Matt had promised free delivery to customers outside the normal service area without checking the schedule. The barbecue truck had submitted an invoice that included an emergency generator fee. I knew these things because people kept telling me. Denise sent factual updates with no request attached. Register 2 has regained the will to live. Cal texted a photograph of the foam hammer costume hanging in the warehouse. Shoes still missing. Luis sent nothing, which worried me more. On Wednesday afternoon, Denise called. "I know you don't work here," she began. "Excellent foundation. I'm not asking for help. Even better." Matt told Ray that Luis failed to schedule the Wednesday countertop delivery. I stopped typing. That was Matt's account. I know. Luis showed him the email. What email? The one where Luis asked if Matt wanted Wednesday or Thursday, and Matt replied, "Do whatever makes sense." That is Matt for, "Make a decision I can punish later." Exactly. What happened? The truck came this morning. The receiving area was full because Matt scheduled a lumber drop at the same time. One countertop cracked when they shifted the pallets. Is Luis okay? He's angry. That wasn't my question. He's fine. Ray told Matt the breakage was his responsibility. I leaned back in my chair. Did Matt hear him? The entire warehouse heard him. I pictured Luis holding his phone, Matt explaining why the words he had written meant something else, Dad choosing where to stand. What did Matt do? Left. Of course. Ray said to tell him that if he didn't return, we'd manage without him. And he didn't return. Denise paused. We managed. There was no triumph in her voice. just tired confirmation. Good, I said. Claire? Yes? Ray asked for the receiving checklist you made. It's in the shared drive. I found it. Then why are you telling me? Accurate information. I smiled despite myself. Thank you. That evening, Dad texted me the name of a diner. No greeting, no explanation. Just Barlow's, 7 tomorrow. I replied, "Is this a kidnapping or breakfast?" He wrote, "Breakfast." Then after a minute, "Please." Dad was already in a booth when I arrived. 2 cups of coffee sat on the table, his black and mine with cream. He had remembered. He looked older than he had at the anniversary sale. Not dramatically, just around the mouth. "You want eggs?" he asked. I assume that's why breakfast exists. He waved to the waitress before I could read the menu. 2 number 4s, he said. Her eggs over medium. The waitress looked at me. Over medium is fine. Dad frowned. You always get over medium. I was confirming, not resisting. You sounded resistant. I'm not fighting you about eggs. Good. We sat in silence until the waitress left. Dad turned his coffee cup between his hands. Matt hasn't come to work in 2 days. I heard. Denise? Yes. He nodded. He thinks I embarrassed him in front of Luis. Did you? I told him the mistake was his. That must have been confusing. Dad ignored that. He says I'm taking your side because I feel guilty. Do you? His thumb stopped against the cup handle. Yes. I hadn't expected the answer. The diner continued around us. Plates struck counters. A blender screamed behind the service station. 2 men in work jackets argued cheerfully about snow tires. Dad looked at the sugar packets. I should have asked more questions after the accident. You asked questions. I asked Matt. He was available. You were there. I was sedated. I mean afterward, I know. The waitress brought our plates. Dad waited until she walked away, then cut his toast into 4 exact triangles. How many times did you cover for him? He asked. I don't know. Guess. No. Why not? Because you'll turn it into arithmetic. You'll decide 3 times means I enabled him. 6 means he manipulated me. And 12 means you failed as a father. Then we'll argue over the number instead of why all of us thought protecting Matt was normal. His knife stopped. I didn't think it was normal. You bought his motorcycle. What does that have to do with anything? He missed your retirement dinner to buy it. Later he needed money, so you bought it from him and stored it for 9 years. It was a good bike. It leaked oil on your garage floor. I could have fixed it. You didn't. He pushed 1 toast triangle through egg yolk. I liked that bike. You never rode it. I liked having it. That surprised me enough to quiet me. Dad looked toward the window. Your mother hated motorcycles, he said. Matt buying one made her furious. When I kept it, I suppose it felt like I was keeping an argument she had been part of. There it was, a reason that did not excuse anything and still made the shape of it sadder. I thought if I kept him close, Dad continued, he'd settle down. You made closeness consequence-free. You think everything is my fault? No. I think you keep hearing blame when I say responsibility. He gave me a sharp look. I held it. Then he nodded once, like he was filing the sentence somewhere unpleasant. What exactly do you want me to do? He asked. Nothing for Matt. That's easy to say. No, it isn't. I know exactly how hard it is. He looked at my cane beside the booth. Did the second injury make the first one worse permanently? Yes. How much? I could have given him percentages from medical evaluations, range of motion figures, nerve conduction results. He would have hidden inside the numbers. I could hike before, I said. Now I plan where I'm going to sit before I enter a building. Dad closed his eyes. Just briefly. When he opened them, he picked up his fork. I need you at the house Sunday, he said. For what? I asked Matt to come. No. Elise too. Still no. I'm not asking you to reconcile. Then what are you asking? He looked at me over the table. I want to ask him why he waited 40 minutes. The diner sounds receded without actually changing. Ask him now. He won't answer my calls. So Sunday is an ambush. It's dinner, with an interrogation. We've had worse. I thought of Mom setting down a roast while Matt and Dad argued about a speeding ticket, then announcing that anyone who raised his voice would lose access to gravy. She had understood leverage. I won't sit there while you negotiate my pain down to something the family can survive, I said. I'm not negotiating. You don't know that yet. Dad folded his napkin beside his plate. You're right, he said, I don't. He paid before I could object. Outside, snow had started falling in small, dry grains. Dad walked me to my truck, hands shoved into the pockets of his work coat. You coming? He asked. I'll think. He nodded. As I opened the driver's door, he said, I remembered something. I waited. At the hospital, Matt wouldn't sit down. He kept going to the restroom to wash his hands. Cold gathered against the back of my neck. He used cleaner without gloves, I said. It irritated his skin. Dad looked at his own hands. I asked him what happened to them. He said the cold cracked them. Neither of us needed to explain why he remembered now. Memory was rearranging itself around the truth. When I got home, Elise was waiting outside my apartment with the overnight bag we had packed and the framed photograph she had turned face down. I'm not going back, she said. Her voice was calm, which made the sentence feel finished. I unlocked the door. She placed the photograph on my table. It showed her and Matt on their wedding day, laughing beneath a shower of white flower petals. I kept thinking there had to be one lie large enough to justify leaving, she said. Something I could point to so nobody could say I gave up. You don't need permission. I know that now. She sat down and looked at the photograph. He came to Tessa's last night. He apologized for the bottle, then blamed me for searching. He apologized for blaming me, then said the store was failing because of you. When I told him that didn't make sense, he said Dad was turning against him because I had chosen your side. He likes sides. He needs them. I told her about Sunday. She pressed her fingertips together. Are you going? I asked. Yes. Why? Because he uses me as proof. Proof he stopped drinking. Proof he changed. Proof people who know him believe him. She slipped off her wedding ring and set it beside the photograph. I don't want to be evidence for him anymore. I looked at the ring, Nora's project schedule, and the blank page where I had begun listing what an independent coordinator might need. For 3 years, silence had been the strongest thing Matt had. Now everyone who had carried it was beginning to put it down. I'll go Sunday, I said. Not to punish him. Not to save Dad. I would go because Matt had spent 40 minutes deciding what the truth was allowed to cost him. It was time he sat still long enough to hear what it had cost everyone else. Dad cooked a roast. He had not cooked a roast since Mom died because he believed the oven possessed hostile settings. Yet there it was on the kitchen counter, gray at the edges and bleeding in the middle, surrounded by carrots that had surrendered structurally. You didn't use the thermometer, I said. I used a clock. Time doesn't measure temperature. It was in there 2 hours. That only tells us how long it's been dangerous. Dad opened the oven again as if a second look might produce training. The kitchen had barely changed since I left for the army. Same oak cabinets, same fruit-patterned wallpaper, same burn mark beside the stove from the year Matt tried to make bananas flambe and removed one of Dad's eyebrows. Mom's ceramic gravy boat sat on the table. I touched the chipped handle. Dad noticed. I found it in the back of the cabinet. You hate gravy. Your mother liked the boat. That was reason enough in this house. Elise arrived carrying a pie nobody had requested. She had removed her wedding ring, though a pale band remained around her finger. Dad saw it and looked away. Apple, she said, setting the box beside the roast. Good, Dad said, store-bought. Still good. We took our places at the table without discussing where anyone should sit. Dad at the end, me on his right. Elise across from me, Matt's empty chair beside her. At 6:12, Dad checked his phone. At 6:20, he sliced the roast. At 6:27, Matt walked in without knocking. He stopped in the kitchen doorway. His gaze moved from Dad to me, then to Elise's bare hand. So this is what we're doing. Dad set down the carving knife. Sit. I'm not hungry. Neither is anybody else. Sit. Matt laughed under his breath, but pulled out the chair. He kept his coat on. Dad served him roast anyway. For a few minutes, the four of us pretended dinner was a logistical problem. Potatoes traveled clockwise. Elise passed the salt. Dad poured gravy over meat he did not intend to eat. Matt looked at the food. You invite me here to fire me again? I didn't fire you, Dad said. You told the staff to manage without me. You left. Because you humiliated me. You blamed Luis for your mistake. Matt glanced at me. Did Denise give you a daily report? No. It was technically true. Some days she sent 2. Dad put his fork down. I asked everybody here for one reason. Matt leaned back. Let me guess. No, Dad said. You don't get to guess. You get to answer. The sentence startled all of us. Dad was not a quiet man, but his anger usually moved fast and wide, knocking into the nearest person. This was different. He had aimed it. He looked at Matt. Why did you wait 40 minutes before calling an ambulance? Matt rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table. I didn't. Claire says you did. Claire had just been injured. That's not an answer. It wasn't 40 minutes. How long was it? I don't know. 5? 10? It was 40, I said. He turned toward me. You couldn't even move. My eyes worked. You were in shock. I watched the clock. You think you watched the clock? Dad's palm struck the table once. The plates jumped. Stop telling her what she remembers. Matt stared at him. Dad lowered his hand. What time did it happen? I don't know, Matt said. Claire? 10:17. How can you be that exact? Matt demanded. The second hand had passed the 3. The minute hand was on 17 when I hit the floor. The ambulance was called at 10:57. You can't know when I made the call. I heard you make it. Elise folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. You called me at 11:06, she said. Matt looked at her. You said the hospital had called you, she continued, but you were still at the store. I could hear the loading door alarm. That doesn't prove anything. No, Dad said. It tells me you lied to your wife before you even left the warehouse. Matt pushed his plate away. I panicked. For 40 minutes? I was trying to figure out what happened. You knew what happened, I said. You reversed into me. It was an accident. The impact was an accident. The next 40 minutes were choices. His face hardened. Dad took a breath through his nose. Why were there boxes around her? I moved them so nothing else would fall. From where? The shelving. There was no shelving beside the platform. There were pallets. Cal says there weren't. Matt's chair scraped backward an inch. Oh, so now Cal is part of the investigation? There is no investigation, Dad said. There's a family asking you why you left your sister on concrete while you rearranged a warehouse. I didn't leave her. I was right there. The words struck the table harder than Dad's hand had. I saw that night again. Matt moving in and out of view, his boots crossing the strip of floor beyond my legs, his voice telling me not to close my eyes, while his hands carried everything away except me. You were right there, I said. That's what made it worse. He looked at me, and for a second, his anger broke. I didn't know what to do. You knew where the cleaner was? I thought there might be an inspection. You thought there might be consequences. Mom had just died. Dad was barely holding the store together. If anyone found out I'd been drinking... You were drinking? Dad asked. Matt stopped. Dad leaned forward. You told me the bottle was unopened. I said if anyone thought I'd been drinking. That's not what you said. Matt stood. This is ridiculous. You've all decided what happened. Sit down, Dad said. No. Then answer standing. Were you drinking? Matt looked toward the doorway. Elise spoke before he could leave. I spent 14 years helping you finish sentences that made you look better. I'm not doing it tonight. He stared at her. You want to talk about our marriage now? No, I don't want to talk about our marriage at all. She placed the folded napkin beside her plate. I'm leaving you." Dad looked down. I watched Matt absorb the sentence, reject it, and search for the person to blame. He found me. "You did this." Elise laughed once, without humor. "I found bourbon in your boot, because she took you into our house looking for it. I asked her to come. You never questioned me before Claire decided to blow up the family. I questioned you every day. I just did it silently because speaking made you cruel." His face changed. "Cruel?" "Yes. I have never touched you. And you think that's the full job description for a husband?" Dad rubbed his forehead. "Answer the question, Matt." "Which question?" "Apparently, I'm on trial for my accident, my marriage, my job. Why did you wait?" Matt turned on him. "I was scared. So was Claire. I knew she was hurt. She asked you to call. I needed time." Dad's voice went very quiet. "Why did you think you had time?" Matt's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Dad waited. So did I. The kitchen clock ticked above the sink. Mom had bought it at a church sale because one of the numbers was upside down. She said imperfection made time more interesting. Matt looked at me. His expression held something close to resentment, as if the answer had always belonged to me and I was forcing him to give it away. "She was conscious," he said. "She was talking. I knew she wasn't dying. I thought I had time. Nobody moved." There it was. Not a confession extracted by authority. Not a technical fact hidden in a report. Just the belief beneath every choice he made. I was conscious, so my pain could wait. He had time because the consequences were his and the body was mine. Dad's face seemed to empty. "She was asking for help," he said. "I called. After you hid the bottle, I was protecting the store." "No," Dad said. "You were protecting yourself. I was protecting all of us. Don't use me for that." Matt looked at me again. "You agreed," he said. "You told the doctors you fell. You told Dad. Don't sit there like I forced you." I agreed. The answer stopped him. I kept going. I lied. I protected you. I told myself Dad couldn't survive the truth and the store couldn't survive another problem. I was wrong. You see? Matt appealed to Dad. "She made the choice." "Yes," I said. "And I'm living with what my choice cost." "That's the difference between us. What do you want me to do, Claire? Go back?" "No." "Give you my hip?" "No." "Then what?" "I wanted you to call an ambulance before you cleaned the steering wheel." He looked away. Dad pushed his chair back and stood. "You're not running the store anymore." Matt's head snapped toward him. "What?" "You heard me. You can't be serious. I should have done it years ago. So Claire gets it?" "No," I said. Dad looked at me, then back at Matt. "Claire doesn't work there. You'll get her back." "No," I said again. Neither man listened. Matt's voice rose. "You're handing her exactly what she wanted." Dad's face tightened. "She never asked me for your job. She did your job while I let you keep the title." The words landed on me, too. Matt stared at him. "You're choosing her." Dad shook his head. "No, I'm finally refusing to choose for you." Matt grabbed his coat closed. "You think the store survives without me? We managed Wednesday. That was one delivery. We managed the sale. I brought in half those customers. You blamed the coupon on Claire. She made the original file. You changed it. It was a mistake." Dad looked at him for a long moment. "You're allowed to make mistakes," he said. "You're not allowed to keep handing them to other people." Matt shoved his chair under the table so hard it struck the wall. At the doorway, he looked at Elise. "You coming?" "No." His jaw worked. Then he looked at me. For 1 second, I thought he might apologize. That was the oldest trap in our family, expecting the right words because the moment had become large enough to deserve them. He said, "I hope this was worth it." I looked at my father, my sister-in-law's empty ring finger, and the gravy boat Mom had loved for no practical reason. "It cost me 3 years and part of my leg," I said. "You don't get to ask if it was worth it." Matt left. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the upside-down number on the kitchen clock. Dad sat down. Elise stared at the pie. Nobody had eaten dessert. After a while, Dad said, "I'm sorry." The apology was too small for the table, but at least he had not dressed it as anything else. "I believe you," he added. I picked up my cane and stood. "I needed that 3 years ago." "I know. No, you know now." He nodded. I put on my coat. Elise rose with me. Dad remained at the table beside 4 unfinished plates. "Claire," he said, "can we fix this?" I looked at him. Not tonight. For once, he did not ask me to stay and do the work while everyone else recovered from the truth. Elise and I sat in her car at the curb while snow gathered on the windshield. Neither of us turned on the engine. Through Dad's kitchen window, we could see him clearing the table. He stacked Matt's untouched plate on top of his own, carried both to the sink, then returned for the gravy boat. "I thought I'd feel relieved," Elise said. "What do you feel?" "Cold." "That may be the car." She gave me a tired look. "Sorry." "No, you're not." "No." She rested her forehead against the steering wheel. I kept waiting for Matt to say something that would make leaving easier. He said several things. I mean, something terrible enough that I wouldn't miss him. I watched Dad rinse a plate. "That's not how missing people works. You sound very certain." I missed him while he was standing beside me. Elise closed her eyes. We stayed until the kitchen light went off. At home, I found a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. Matt had borrowed someone's phone. "Congratulations," he said. His voice was flat. "You got Dad, the store, and my wife. I hope you enjoy all of it." He hung up before explaining how I was supposed to enjoy a store I had quit, a father I still didn't trust, and a woman sleeping in her cousin's guest room. I deleted the message. Then I blocked that number too. Dad called before opening the store the next morning. "I told the staff Matt is no longer general manager," he said. "What did you tell them about why?" "That he won't accept responsibility for mistakes." "That's true." "I didn't tell them everything. That's your decision." He was quiet. "What do I say when they ask if you're coming back?" "The truth." "That you quit?" "That I quit after you called my injury an excuse and defended the person who caused it." Dad breathed into the phone. "All of that?" "You asked." "I did. I expected him to bargain, to call it private, to ask me to soften one word so he could say the rest comfortably." "Okay," he said. That afternoon, Denise texted, "Your father told the truth in a staff meeting. Not elegantly." Cal cried. Louise pretended to have dust in both eyes. I wrote, "Was there dust? There is always dust. That is why it's a strong cover." Matt did not return to the store. He called Dad, Cal, Denise, and eventually Louise. Each conversation began as an apology and ended as an explanation for why somebody else had forced him to act badly. Denise stopped answering after the second call. Louise listened once, then told Matt he had a delivery to mismanage. Dad did not ask me how to bring him back. That was harder for him than firing Matt. I knew because every few days he called me with an ordinary question, circled the silence where Matt's name belonged, and left it alone. "Did you get snow?" he asked once. "We live 12 minutes apart." "Could be regional." "No." "All right." Another time he called to tell me the hardware supplier had changed representatives. "I don't work there." "I know, you hated the old one." "I did. The new one returns calls." "Good." That's all. The conversations were awkward, brief, and free of assignments. I began to trust them by inches. Nora's kitchen entered demolition with the enthusiasm of a room finally allowed to complain. Once the island came out, we found 3 layers of flooring beneath it, one electrical junction hidden behind a decorative panel, and a handwritten note from Frank on the subfloor. Nora wanted the small island. I was right. Nora read it twice. That man has been dead 6 years and is still trying to win. Priya took a photograph before covering the note. "We can leave it," she said. "No," Nora replied. "Put the lowered counter directly over it." I respected the strategy. The cabinet delivery slipped by 9 days because 2 drawer bases were loaded onto a truck bound for Pennsylvania. Priya called expecting me to be angry. "I don't need angry," I told her. "I need the earliest corrected delivery and confirmation the other pieces won't be held. I can release everything else Friday. Do that. We'll install the west wall, finish electrical, and leave the 2 missing sections accessible. That adds an installation day. I know. I'll cover it. Put that in an email. She laughed once. You really were Army. Email existed before the Army. Not the way you use it. We adjusted. Nobody needed me to lift cabinets, threaten a driver, or pretend the delay had never happened. I changed the sequence, told Nora the truth, and protected the project instead of somebody's ego. Nora reacted to the delay by baking 3 loaves of banana bread in a temporary toaster oven she had set on her dining room floor. I'm stress baking, she said. You have to stop kneeling to use that. I'm adapting. You're proving why you hired me. Sam found a folding table and moved the toaster oven onto it. Nora gave him a loaf. See, he said. Professional compensation. I got paid actual money, not in banana bread. That doesn't fit my accounting system. Your accounting system is a notebook labeled money. It's clear. It's terrifying. By the time the missing cabinets reached Ohio, I had 2 more small projects. One came from Priya, a retired accountant who needed a bathroom renovation coordinated around dialysis appointments. The other was Nora's neighbor, who did not need accessibility work but had fired 2 contractors over a laundry room addition and wanted someone who could explain why every delivery arrived on a different Thursday. It was not a fortune. It barely replaced half my store salary, but the work belonged to me. I registered the plainest name I could tolerate. Mercer Project Coordination. Sam suggested Clear Path Logistics. That sounds like a trucking company, I said. He suggested Mission Ready Homes. That sounds like camouflage siding. He suggested Cain and Abel. I threw him out of my apartment for 11 minutes. I kept Mercer because it was my name, too. Dad and Matt had not invented it. They did not get to make it feel borrowed. Priya sublet me a small office above her design studio. The room had 1 window, a radiator that hissed like an angry librarian, and carpet the color of oatmeal. My desk came from a used furniture warehouse. Sam mounted 2 whiteboards, one level and one spiritually level. I put the Fort Knox photograph on the desk. The Ask Me About Lead Times mug became my pen holder. Dad brought it to the office on my 3rd day there. I found it behind your monitor, he said. I thought Denise packed everything. She probably left it so I'd have a reason to bring it. That sounds like Denise. He stood in the doorway holding the mug with both hands. The office contained 1 chair besides mine, a metal visitor's chair that squeaked whenever anyone shifted. Dad sat in it and immediately looked suspicious. This chair's broken. It makes conversation efficient. He handed me the mug. His gaze traveled over the whiteboards. Each project had a row. Decisions, dates, constraints, open questions. No one's name appeared beneath a column labeled excuses. You built this fast, he said. I started small. You always do. I waited for him to add, and then you take over. He didn't. How's the store? I asked. Still standing. High praise. Denise is handling operations. I increased her pay. Good. She said the same thing. Did she apply twice for Matt's job? Dad looked at the floor. 3 times. I only knew about 2. So did I. That answer told me more than an explanation would have. He rubbed his palms over his knees. I'm thinking about selling. The radiator hissed. The store? Yes. Because of Matt? Because I'm 67, the roof needs replacing, and I don't want to spend the next 5 years pretending I'm preparing somebody to inherit a job I never asked whether they wanted. I did want it once. I know. But I don't now. I know that too. The speed of his answer loosened something in my chest. Don't sell it to punish yourself, I said. I'm not. Don't sell it to punish Matt either. I'm not. Then why? Dad looked toward the window. From the 2nd floor, Mercer Home Supplies sign was not visible. Only the road, a tire shop, and gray winter trees. After your mother died, I thought keeping the store exactly the same meant keeping the family exactly the same. Then I spent 3 years watching everything change and blaming whoever mentioned it. He looked back at me. I'm tired. It was the first time he had said the word without making it someone else's fault. You don't need my permission, I said. I know, do you? I'm working on it. He stood and tested the visitor chair once more with his hand. It's definitely broken. You're welcome to buy me another. He gave me a look. Then he noticed the folded cane beside my desk. You using that more? I'm hiding it less. He nodded. At the door, he paused. Matt started counseling. I kept my face still. Good. He wanted me to tell you. I assume that's why you did. Dad winced. I'm not asking you to call him. Good. He says he wants to apologize. He knows my number. He's blocked. He knows my address. That went badly last time. Yes. Dad put one hand on the doorknob. I told him an apology isn't a key, he said. He doesn't get access because he says the right words. I studied him. That sounds almost healthy. Don't spread it around. He left. Nora's final cabinet installation began the next morning. The missing drawer bases fit. The lowered counter came in at the correct height. Priya installed the pull-down shelves, and Nora raised and lowered them 5 times with an expression of such severe concentration that no one dared celebrate. When the last shelf settled within reach, she placed one white dinner plate on it. Then she turned to me. Friday, she said. What happens Friday? I cook dinner in my kitchen. That's usually how kitchens work. You're coming. Bring Sam. Why? Because I'm paying for all these chairs and somebody needs to sit in them. She pointed at my cane. And use that if you need it. I didn't spend this much money making a room understand bodies just so you could stand in it pretending you don't have one. I opened my mouth. Nora raised one finger. Don't argue. I have accessible shelving and renewed confidence. I looked around the kitchen. The pathways were wider. The cabinets Nora could use most easily were painted deep blue. The upper cabinets were warm white, preserving height without making the room feel clinical. The old wine rack was gone. In its place, within effortless reach, was the coffee station. Frank would have hated it. Nora glowed. Fine, I said. Friday. On my way out, I texted Dad. Nora's kitchen is finished. Dinner Friday. You can come if you want. I stared at the message before sending it. The invitation was not forgiveness. It was not a return to the store or the family we had pretended to be. It was a chair in a room designed around the truth of what people could carry. Dad replied a minute later. I'd like that. Should I bring anything? I thought about it. Then I wrote, Ask Nora. He answered, I will. For once, neither of us assumed I was in charge of everyone's contribution. Nora told Dad to bring ice. He arrived with 2 bags of ice, a bottle of wine, and a grocery store bouquet large enough to conceal his face. I was told ice, he said. You were given one job, I replied. I brought ice. You brought supporting materials. Nora took the flowers. He can come in. Her finished kitchen glowed behind her. Priya had turned on the under-cabinet lights, though Nora claimed nobody needed to see a backsplash that clearly. A blue runner stretched along the widened path between the sink and refrigerator. The shortened island left enough room for Nora to turn without angling her body. Dad stopped in the doorway. This is nice, he said. Nora narrowed her eyes. Nice? Very nice. Better. Priya came with a container of roasted vegetables. Sam brought bakery rolls and no painter's tape. Elise carried another pie, claiming she had developed a reputation. She had moved out of Tessa's guest room and into a 1-bedroom apartment near her dental office. The apartment had ugly green carpet and a balcony overlooking a pharmacy drive-through. She loved it. Matt had not been invited. His absence did not dominate the room. That surprised me. For 3 years, we had organized ourselves around what he knew, what he might say, and what would happen if the truth reached him in the wrong shape. Now 6 adults stood in a kitchen he had never seen, discussing whether Nora's new microwave drawer was an appliance or a personality test. It opens when you tap it, Nora said. Sam tapped the panel. Nothing happened. It knows you don't live here, she told him. He tapped again. The drawer opened. Trust established, he said. Nora served beef stew from a pot beneath the lowered counter. She worked seated for part of the meal, moving between the stove and prep surface without asking anyone to reach above her or carry something across the room. Dad watched her. Not with pity, with concentration. He had spent a lifetime believing help meant stepping in. Nora's kitchen showed another possibility. Change the space so stepping in was not always necessary. We ate at the dining table because Nora refused to risk gravy on new cabinet doors. Dad sat beside Sam. They had met before, but only in hospital rooms and store aisles, places where both men had treated the other as a representative from a competing jurisdiction. "What do you do now?" Dad asked him. "Facilities supervisor at a retirement community. You like it?" People appreciate preventive maintenance after age 70. Nora pointed her spoon at him. "I'm 68. I wasn't referring to you. You looked in my direction. I was admiring the microwave." Dad smiled. Across the table, Elise asked Priya how she became a contractor. "My father told me I complained too much about the people he hired," Priya said. "He suggested I do better." "Did he expect you to?" "No. That was the fun part." Dad looked at me. I knew what he was thinking because I had inherited the part of his face that failed to conceal retrospective guilt. "Don't," I said. I didn't say anything. Your eyebrows did. What did they say? That you should have encouraged me differently 15 years ago. He considered that. They're right. Eat your stew. He did. Nobody turned his admission into a ceremony. Nora asked Sam for another role. Priya complained about a cabinet supplier. Elise laughed without checking whether Matt found the joke disloyal. Halfway through dinner, pain tightened around my right hip. I shifted in the chair. The muscles in my thigh fluttered once, then again. Dad noticed. Of course he did. He did not tell me to sit. I was already sitting. He did not ask if I had overdone it, announce that I looked tired, or turn my body into the subject everyone else had to discuss. My cane rested against the wall behind me. I reached for it. Dad moved as if he might stand, then stopped himself. Sam continued telling Nora why her garbage disposal sounded normal. Priya passed Elise the butter. The conversation made room for me without rearranging itself. I unfolded the cane and leaned it beside my chair. The pain did not disappear. The shame did. After dinner, Nora demonstrated every cabinet. She raised the pull-down shelf to show Dad where the plates lived. She opened the wide drawers with the side of her hand. She sat at the lowered counter and poured coffee without twisting. Dad ran his palm along the edge of the work surface. "Claire planned this?" "Claire planned when everybody else would do it," Nora said. "That's more difficult." "I know." She looked at him. There were no dramatic introductions. Nora knew he was my father and owned the store I had left. She knew enough to hear the weight in his answer. "She's expensive," Nora said. "I paid her for years." She wasn't. The truth landed without becoming a defense. "No?" I said. "I wasn't." Dad nodded. We cleared the table. Nora objected to anyone washing dishes because she wanted to use her new dishwasher herself. She permitted us to stack plates on the counter, then supervised as though we had all recently failed a plate handling certification. Priya left first. Elise followed after helping Nora divide the leftover pie. At the front door, Elise hugged me. She had never done that before without a holiday requiring it. "Matt mailed me a letter," she said quietly. "An apology?" He called it one. "That sounds promising." He wrote 3 pages about why he lied and 2 sentences about what it did to me. Less promising. "I'm not answering." "You don't have to." She glanced toward Dad, who was helping Sam collapse the extra chairs. "He sent you one too. I haven't checked my mail. You don't have to answer either." She left carrying half a pie and no ring. Sam loaded the folding chairs into his car. Dad and I remained in Nora's kitchen while she searched for a box sturdy enough to hold the old cabinet hardware she planned to donate. She found one beneath the dining room bench and filled it with hinges, knobs, shelf brackets, and the wine rack removed from Frank's design. "I'm taking this to the reuse center," she said. "I can drop it off," I told her. The box was not especially heavy, awkward but manageable. I bent my knees, set the cane against the counter, and lifted it. My right leg tightened immediately. Dad stepped closer. His hands rose, then stopped short of the box. "Do you want me to carry that?" he asked. "Not give me that." "Not you shouldn't." Not a correction disguised as concern. A question. I looked at him over the top of the cardboard. "Yes," I said. He took the box after I had agreed to let go. The weight left my arms. I picked up the cane. Nothing about me became less capable. Dad carried the box to his truck. I walked beside him, my cane clicking against Nora's new front path. At the tailgate, he set the box down. "I accepted an offer on the store," he said. I stopped. That was fast. "It's been in discussion longer than I admitted." "Who?" "A regional building supply company. They'll keep the location open. Denise will manage it if she wants. She'll want a better chair. She already put it in writing. That's Denise. Cal and Luis can stay. Same pay or better. And the Mercer name? Coming down." I looked at him. He rubbed one hand over the tailgate. I thought that would hurt more. "Does it? Ask me when they remove the sign." "What will you do? Sleep past 5:40. That could be dangerous at your age." "I'm 67. Nora says the real maintenance begins at 70. He smiled. Then his face became serious. "I'm not selling because you left." "Good. I'm selling because you leaving made me see what I had built around you. That's close to the same thing." "No. One makes it your fault. The other makes it information." I studied him. He had been listening. "What about Matt?" I asked. "He thinks I'm taking his future. The store wasn't his future, it was yours." "I know. Does he?" "Not yet." Dad looked toward Nora's lit windows. "He's still in counseling. He found a sales job across town." "Good. He asked me for money." "What did you say?" "No." The word sounded strange in his mouth. "How'd that go?" "Badly." "And after?" "He figured something out." I nodded. That was all I wanted to know. Dad closed the tailgate. "His letter's at your apartment," he said. "You can throw it away. I might read it. You don't owe him that." "No, you don't owe me this, either." He gestured between us. The old version of Dad would have said family was family, as if repetition settled debt. This man stood in Nora's driveway and admitted that access to me was not guaranteed. "I know," I said. We returned to the kitchen. Nora made us take coffee in travel cups even though Dad lived 10 minutes away, and I had already had 3 cups. Sam waited near my truck, pretending not to notice that Dad and I had needed time outside. The store sale closed in early summer. Dad stood in the parking lot while workers removed the Mercer Home Supply sign one letter at a time. He called me afterward, not during. "It's done," he said. "How are you?" "I don't know yet." "That's fair." Denise accepted the management position and negotiated the chair. Cal retired 6 months later, then returned 2 mornings a week because retirement had too many mornings in it. Luis took over receiving and printed Matt's email, "Do whatever makes sense," above his desk as a warning against unclear instructions. Elise filed for divorce. She kept the ugly apartment, replaced the green carpet with a blue rug, and learned she liked eating dinner at 8. Matt sent one more apology after 4 months of counseling. This one contained no request for forgiveness. He wrote that he had treated my consciousness as permission to delay because he had believed his fear mattered more than my pain. I read it. I did not answer. Mercer project coordination never became an empire. It became steady work. I added a second desk to the oatmeal-colored office, though the visitor's chair remained because its squeak discouraged long meetings. Priya referred more renovation clients. Nora referred everyone she met, including a man at the pharmacy who had asked only whether she liked her cabinets. Dad came by on Fridays with lunch. He always knocked. One afternoon, he stood in my office doorway holding 2 paper bags while I finished a call with a cabinet supplier. My cane leaned against the desk in full view. The Fort Knox photograph sat beside it. The mug with crooked red letters held my best pens. When I hung up, Dad raised the bags. "Soup," he said. "Need me to move that box before we eat?" A carton of project binders blocked the visitor's chair. I could have moved it. I looked at him, waiting instead of reaching. Yes, I said, please. He carried the box. I carried the soup. And neither of us confused the difference with love.